Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. I'm at Dillahunty. Welcome to the line. This is the Hang Up right here on the line. It's my show on Wednesday evenings where I get to talk about whatever I want. And yes, as always, if you're a theist, if you're a God believer, if you're a Christian, a Muslim, I don't care, Scientologist, Buddhist, Hindu, if you have some reason to believe in a God or the supernatural, by all means, you will still go to the head of the queue, and you always will. But I also recognize that fewer and fewer people are calling in to defend their beliefs. I think more people are starting to realize that they don't have any good reason for those beliefs, and that's fine. As long as they're not out there telling people that they should have a good reason for beliefs. But yesterday was election day. And there were a lot of important elections that took place. Turns out Texans are incredibly stupid and voted to approve all 17 of the propositions. So, yeah, I wonder where we are on the education scale and what people even know. Now, to be fair, there were no people on the ballot. It was only issues in Texas. And it's a sort of election that I would have definitely skipped 25 years ago. And it's one I probably would have skipped 15 years ago. It was nothing that seemed particularly critical. Here's an amendment that would allow the legislature to do this. And so it's not actually doing anything other than giving them power. And quite frankly, at this point, given what we know about the legislature, I probably should have voted no on all of them, because I'm not sure I want to be giving them any more power, because it seems like no matter whether it's, the bad guys or the not quite so bad guys or the moderate guys or maybe even some good guys, if you give them the power, maybe there's not a lot of good that's going to come from it. Outside of Texas, though, the Democrats had an amazing night. That's it. That's all I needed to say. They had an amazing night. We don't need to talk about it. I don't even know who won. Oh, wait. Yeah, no. I actually went and did some math and some other stuff. Virginia had probably the most incredible night. I think the Democrats gained like 14 to 16 seats in their state legislature. They got a Democratic governor and a Democratic lieutenant governor. By the way, I'm not a Democrat. I vote for a lot of Democrats because they're quite often the best option to go with what my views are. And I've recommended for people to vote for Democrats. See, in the primaries and things like that, vote your conscience, vote for the best policies, do what you can to support whatever candidates you can, whether they're independent, Democrat, Republican, Green, who cares? When it gets down to brass tacks, where you really only have two candidates in the last election, it was for president, either Trump or Kamala Harris. When you get down to that, you have to make a decision for the better of those options, no matter how bad they are. Kamala's problematic in a number of areas. I had problems with her before she became the nominee. And Dick Cheney died this week, and of course, Kamala said nice things about him. And I say, fuck that. I don't have any nice things to say about him. Yeah, I don't have anything nice to say. And that should be where most people stop. I'll go a step further and say that I think he was probably a war criminal and profited off of lies and conflict. Frankly, until they announced that he died, I don't think I knew he was still alive. I think I probably thought that he died, in the midst of COVID or something. So it was a little bit of a surprise to find out that he was still around. Let's see. Any other news happen? Anything exciting happen? Oh, well, the New York mayor election was yesterday as well. And there was this Muslim running against the establishment candidate and disgraced former governor Andrew Cuomo. How'd that go? Oh yeah, Cuomo got his ass kicked, as did the third guy in that. And that's in the past, most people probably couldn't tell you who the mayor of New York was beyond incidents of national emergencies, things like 9/11. But seemingly everyone knows who's going to be the mayor of New York. And a lot of them are madder about it than they are about the upcoming Super Bowl halftime show, which when you get people riled up about halftime shows and the mayor of New York, I think you've got some marketing that you've done really well with. He ran, Zohran Mamdani, ran while facing opposition, of course, from the Republicans, right up to the president, who may have engaged in election tampering by sharing on social media that if Mamdani won, he would stop funding certain things, stop some money that would be going to New York. And he came out and endorsed Cuomo. By the way, everybody that Trump endorsed lost yesterday. Every single one of them lost. But Mamdani didn't just face the president of the United States. He faced opposition from the Democratic Party because he's a democratic socialist. And I probably am as well. I don't worry that much about the labels, but what I find is that those are the people that I tend to agree with the most. And I don't take the shortcuts on just, they use this label, therefore they've got my vote. But I'll get more into that in a minute. But he faced opposition from the Democrats as well. He won the primary, and then Cuomo decided to run as an independent, and still got like 40, I don't know, some portion of the vote. Mamdani got over 50%, which is good, because then you can't call either one of them a spoiler, even though Cuomo was definitely in there as a spoiler and getting presidential endorsements. The Democratic establishment did not really support Mamdani at all. But then at the last minute, Hakeem Jeffries decided that it would be okay to go out on a limb that is tinier than his penis and endorse him in the 11th hour in a weak-ass leap to the bandwagon that was getting ready to leave town. And not only has this feckless individual been a problem within the Democratic Party, such that we should be primarying these individuals so that we're not forced to vote for them. We need to get more people out to go up against them in primaries. And I think we've seen in Mamdani and some of the others that I've been listening to recently, a sort of model that others might be able to follow. Now, yes, you're not all going to be able to speak 6 languages the way he can, but his platform for New York was pretty straightforward. It was things that were going to actually benefit New Yorkers. Things like rent freeze on rent stabilized units, a $30 minimum wage by 2030, LGBTQ rights, public child care, fare-free city buses, and a city-owned grocery store. Oh, and he wants to increase taxes on corporations and only increase taxes on people making over $1 million a year. I'm down with all that. And so Zohran Mamdani became one of my top 2 favorite Muslims. Hang on. Who's this atheist talking about his favorite Muslims? Don't worry, I have favorite Christians and favorite Scientologists and favorite everything, because no matter how you want to divide up the religious, even within those subgroups, there are differences. For example, when I look at Christianity, not only do I not put all religions in one bucket, I definitely don't put all Christians in the same bucket. As a matter of fact, I would probably knock it down to 5 buckets and then put a gold star on a handful of people in one of the buckets. And so on the fringe right of Christianity, where you've got, like the KKK and others, and Westboro Baptist Church, and these sort of hate groups and everything else, they're on some of them are on somewhat solid footing with respect to the Bible, which is the only thing we've really got to go off of right now. But then there's the sort of right-leaning Christianity that isn't as hateful outwardly, but is seemingly just as hateful inwardly. And so they're, opposed to LGBTQ rights and all sorts of things. And I get it. I mean, when your holy book flatly says if a man lies with a man as he lies with a woman, they've committed an abomination and are deserving of death, it's really hard to pretend, no matter how much you want to. Well, what that really meant was that if they're engaged in some sort of prostitution or whatever, no, actually, I'm in favor of that as well. Well, in this case, it's about pederasty. Well, then maybe they should say that. God should be a little bit more clear. Then, of course, there's the third category, the centrist floating Christians. Then there's the left-leaning Christians, which maybe as many as 50% of Christians support, not approve, but recognize and are welcoming with respect to, for example, same-sex marriage and things like that. And then way out in the fifth bucket are the far left Christians, the ones that are either Christian in name only, and I'll give some of those gold stars, or like the gay-run, gay-friendly, Rainbow Brigade, San Francisco Queer Pride Church. And we probably agree on all kinds of stuff. You can set up those same sorts of categories when you're talking about Judaism, everything from like Hasidic Jews up to atheist Jews. A good 50% of Jews in Israel are secular. And there are plenty of people who there's a little more cultural tie with Judaism than there is with Christianity, in part because of the oppression and the Holocaust. And so when you look at those groups, there's a spectrum, even within Christianity and within Judaism. There's a similar thing within Islam. If you just took, the worst elements of all of them, it's pretty easy for me to say that Islam is the worst and most dangerous and most vile in many regards. But the others, all the Abrahamic religions tend to give each other a run for their money in some category in what the books support and in what the fundamentalist right side supports. So, for example, within Islam, you have Sunni and Shia, and 25% of the world's population is Muslim of some stripe, and about 28% or so are Christian of some stripe. If you break down the Muslims, it's about 90% Sunni, maybe slightly less, 87 to 90% Sunni, and 10 to 13% Shia. Similarly, you can break down that Christian chunk of the population into 90% are Catholic and Protestant, 48 and 39%, and about 10% are Orthodox, and then there are others outside of there. But you can break those down in different categories as well. And you can say that, hey, basically, of the Shia Muslims, 85% of those, 85% of that 10% of all Muslims, are part of the 12er Shias. So that's the majority of that minority, and that's the one that Mamdani subscribes to. It's about 170 million people worldwide, and yet you don't hear much about them, and most people don't know. In the same way that the average American knows plenty of people who are Christian, Protestant, Catholic, Episcopalian. They know about the gay-friendly churches, but they don't know what the percentages are. They don't know what the norms are, because one of them has a much greater tradition, history, financing, and a loud-ass voice, and the other one isn't on really good biblical footing. And so its veracity as a Christian group is dubious and pretty easily challenged, at least by people who are like, oh, well, what's the book say? Okay, well, then what's the book mean? Ooh, now we're getting into theology. And the overwhelming majority of people who identify as Christian don't really know anything about it and don't pay any attention to it. It doesn't matter how right or left they are. They don't know the Bible. They don't know the history. They don't know. And nobody's been able to come forward and say, hey, here's what God actually meant. Here's what the book actually means. Here's what the right way is. It's all just opinion, The same thing is true within Judaism. The same thing is true within Islam. I don't vote for someone based on what their religion is. I will say that There are some religions where if somebody publicly says, hey, I'm part of this religion, it's more likely to raise an eyebrow from me than some other religion. But I also don't vote on someone based on the letter after the name. It doesn't matter if it says R, D, G, whether you're Republican, Democrat, Green, whatever, independent. I also don't vote for people just because they're atheists. There are plenty of atheists that could not get my vote over anybody. There are some terrible, awful, ridiculous atheists who are bigots and hateful and gross. There are atheists who are absolutely MAGA, and none of them are going to be hitting my vote. For me, it's about the policies. And Zohran Mamdani's policies are ones that I tend to agree with very little exceptions, perhaps more than anyone else running that I've been paying attention to for anything. I would like to clone him so that there's a natural born American citizen version of him that could run for president. I found his speech incredibly inspiring. I found his policies forward looking, and I find his intelligence and wit and balls to be just impressive every time. I still despise Islam and Christianity and Judaism and Scientology and other religions that have not demonstrated their truth, which is all of them. I despise them for the fact that they have evidently duped people and are taking advantage of people, not for those people's benefit, but for the promise of some benefit in another life or whatever else. And the best versions of Muslims, Christians, Jews, etc., are the ones that recognize that whatever their views are on an afterlife or a future life or an external world or a God or anything else, we are stuck here on this planet and need to cooperate. And there are people dying and starving, and there are consequences to the actions we've taken with regard to climate change. There needs to be fixes that eliminate income disparity, that make it so that people can afford healthcare. How bizarre is it that the Democrats are being blamed for a shutdown with the accusation that they're trying to give free healthcare to illegal immigrants, none of which is true. And I saw somebody post today, look, American citizens have a hard time getting healthcare coverage. How delusional do you have to be to think that the Democrats are trying to give it away to illegal immigrants? We've gone over this multiple times. Undocumented workers, undocumented people don't have access to those programs, and nobody's trying to get it that way. Except maybe they should. Let me throw that ball out there. Maybe we should be working towards a system where it doesn't matter who you are, and it doesn't matter which pocket of the world you are a citizen of. You are still deserving of dignity, freedom, healthcare, a place to stay, things kind of covered in like the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. Now, Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution says there'll be no religious test for any public office or trust. That's about what the government can do. Who knows, that can change tomorrow. But people can have their own test. And I get it. You can test and say, oh, no, there's no way I'd vote for a Muslim. And that's just bigoted and stupid. It's pretending that all Muslims are the same. I tend to view people like Mamdani as like the pastor at a San Francisco queer church, the one that is super left and has rainbows all over their church. I don't agree with them on everything, but I don't view that person as a threat, and I don't remotely view them as someone who's going to institute or implement Christian nationalism. There are people claiming that there were memes posted with the Statue of Liberty with a burqa, and I'm like, have you seen his wife? Why on earth would you think the guy whose wife doesn't wear a burqa would make it so that everybody has to, what? They will make up anything and come up with any excuse to avoid the obvious, which is that a young, inspiring, person who they wouldn't normally associate themselves with has been brave and successful in direct opposition to his own party and opposition and independents. And he's not just speaking his mind, he's targeting the president of the United States, a position he is not eligible to ever run for. And he's targeting the current administration and their lies and the consequences of their actions that real Americans are suffering. And he's combating that with facts and clever, righteous responses that rise above Gavin Newsom's trolling. He's better at this than anybody else. And that's why he won, and that's why he deserved to win. He's creating a template I hope others will follow. And like I said, he's one of my two favorite Muslims. And I don't want to say things like that too often, because I don't want somebody who is the best candidate for a position to not get elected, either because an atheist said they liked their policies, or because a Muslim said they liked their policies, or because a Christian said they liked their policies. It's about the policies. And I will stand up against religious doctrines. I will stand up against lies on behalf of religions, including his, where there are assertions about truth. But it is ridiculous to fail to recognize that people have a variety of beliefs. Many of them are religious. And for many of them, it's not the most important thing about who they are. And it is a personal thing. And they've already made their peace with the fundamentalist wackadoos within their religion and are back to working in reality with the rest of us. I would debate Mamdani in a heartbeat about whether or not his God is real and stand right beside him as he works for policies that move society forward for the betterment of all of us. So congratulations. Let's bring in my guest tonight, John Gleason, Godless Engineer. We are going to be taking calls. I'm looking forward to, hey, are we going to get some people explaining why they're opposed to a Muslim mayor? I don't know. How was your day, John?
I did pretty much nothing all day. So it's not that I did nothing. I got sucked into playing Civ 7 for a good portion of the day. So that's how I'm spending my days now. That, and I'm building up my site for the Rocket City Reason. I'm building out the speakers page. So trying to get that going.
I'm hoping, whether I end up on the speakers page or not, I'm hoping that I get to come. I was talking about that the other day. Arden and a number of other people from the line will definitely be there. The biggest problem that we've got is that we have a gazillion animals, and it's not easy for both of us to leave at the same time. If we can figure that out, I will definitely be joining her.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, no, we're planning on having like a featured guest sort of page, and you would definitely be there, but as well as we've got a section for the actual line show that we're going to be hosting on that Saturday night. So you'll definitely show up there too if you're able to make it.
If there's no other option, Arden can video call me and hold the phone up, and I'll say hi to everybody and wave or something. All right.
But yeah, I've had to fill my days with, trying to up my social media game, because that's the only line of funding that I have right now. So, that keeps some of the bills paid.
Well, I put out a post to let people know we were getting ready to go live. If you're in chat right now, it's time for you to head out there and talk and spread the word about this show, about the line, about people starting to recognize that, hey, there's some atheists over here who seem to be A-okay with a a Muslim mayor and socialism and all the dirty words that people are afraid of. It is incredibly wild. Oh my gosh! Did you see the note from the line
in the chat?
In chat? They didn't know that
Yeah.
you were playing Civ 7. They thought you were playing 6-7. So. Well,
I mean, I was doing 6-7 all day, apparently, according to the dictionary.
I got a pen is 6-7. So every time somebody says 6-7, I'm reminded of that. I have another friend who's 6'7" too, but all right. So if you're a theist and you want to call in and defend your religious belief or explain what we got wrong or what we misunderstood, because right now I'm just in the position that for every major world religion that I have looked at, to the extent that they are falsifiable, I think they've kind of been falsified a bit. To the extent that they're unfalsifiable, my position is that it's irrational to believe them. And so what we're asking is not necessarily for you to call in and demonstrate that they are in fact true. That's a bridge, that's a hurdle too high for any of you. But if you can just call in and explain why it's rational to believe it. And if not, I'd like to know why people are okay with believing something that they acknowledge isn't rational. I'm not even saying you're wrong. I mean, I get that there are people who are like, oh, it just comforts me, or it puts me, I don't have to explain myself to people. I can just be like, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm whatever. It would be interesting to hear why the truth and rationality are seemingly trumped by your feelings, by how others treat you. And I'd love for somebody to explain how it's not cowardice to claim a religion that you don't actually believe in or adhere to in order to avoid the consequences. Don't get me wrong. I think there are many circumstances where that's exactly the right thing to do. But in day-to-day life, in a generally free society, I'd like to know how that's not cowardice. I mean, is it just you don't want to make grandma mad, and so you're not going to tell the rest of the family until after she dies? Is that what's going on? Maybe. I don't know. There's political angles to some of this within families. And if you are a MAGA supporting person, when you tune in and you're done licking your wounds and crying, like, oh, who was it that really cried hard today? Trump cried quite a bit, but John Rocker tweeted out, taxis will be replaced by camels. Women will be forced to cover themselves head to toe. NYPD will be replaced with religious police. All hot dog stands will be replaced with goat meat stands. This is what you voted for. Electing politicians like Mohammed Mamdani will cause America to fall. That was an actual tweet from John Rocker. The bigotry on display is staggering.
Yeah. And I did you see the post from Rudy Giuliani?
I did
on
not.
social media. Okay, yeah, he did kind of like a collage that was like a 9/11 collage, where it had him at the very top of it and like the towers getting attacked, and it said something like apparently New York forgot or something like that.
Yes, I saw a number of people sharing that, but I didn't know it was from Giuliani at some point. Yep.
I know he at least posted it, so I don't know if he made it or somebody else made it and he posted it, but he posted that.
This is every accusation from the right is an admission, and they can't think beyond the McNuggets of thought that President McDonald's is shoving down their throat, because all he knows is to run around. He learns a new word or he learns a new issue, and he just repeats that. Whoever his political advisor is, it's like, sir, just keep saying this. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. It's working. Just keeps trying. Democrat shutdown, Democrat shutdown, Democrat shutdown. Free healthcare for immigrants, free healthcare for immigrants, free health. Just keep saying anything. They will absolutely fall for it. And they are. And so now it's like, oh, the problem is he's Muslim. No. Of all the things Mamdani is that could be problematic, his relationship to Islam has not in any way impacted his policies. As a matter of fact, he's probably the least typical Muslim sounding Muslim I've run across. He reminds me of, we have a friend of a friend who is in line with us on everything, pretty much politically, that we're largely all in line with. Still believes in God. Still identifies as a Christian. Won't discuss it, won't defend it. And I'm like, what's left? What is it? What is it that's left about Christianity? I mean, I don't get to say who is or isn't a true believer. I guess we'll have to find out. But we have lines open and we have callers lining up right now. So let's get this party started.
I'm ready.
Matt, not me, but another Matt, pronouns he, him, is calling from Illinois. Hey, Matt, you're on with John and Matt.
Hey, Matt. What's up, man?
Nothing much. Just trying to change the world.
I've just a little feature puff piece for you. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in nonsense if I can help it. But I never went through the believer phase. You know, like I actually bought into it and I had to be deconverted and all that stuff. And I'm just fascinated as to how somebody with the intellect that you and who's that fellow from the deconstruction zone?
Justin.
Yeah, I mean, how people of your, that order of magnitude, because I was just young Sheldon from the get. I got out of there as fast as I could go, which turned out to be about 11 and a half years old. They finally turned me loose because they were afraid of me. I told them I was going to burn their church down if they didn't. How does that work? I mean, what is it like to live with that level of cognitive dissonance as someone with such intellectual gifts? And it's just me being curious for my own masturbatory purposes.
Well, it's not about intellect at all. And there is no cognitive dissonance if you are unaware of that state of affairs. When you're wrong about anything, you think you're right. And until such time as somebody can show that you're wrong, you're going to keep thinking you're right. So it feels exactly like being right because that's what you think is happening. I don't know what you think my life was like, but I was a Christian from around the age of 5, but I was steeped in it from before I was born, and surrounded by it with everybody around me. There was nothing to challenge that and no reason to think that it could be wrong. Everybody you know is some type of God believer like this. And when you're a kid, you trust the adults, you trust the ministers, you trust the authorities because you don't know enough. And so then for a number of years, I was kind of apathetic about my religion and I didn't challenge it. And then when I did challenge it, for the purposes of facing challenges from like my roommate and others, it was, oh, and the dominoes just started falling. So there's no point at which you're in conflict between being wrong and being right, at least not from my perspective.
All right, okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I was born into a family where my mother converted a couple of years after my parents got married. Well, actually, I was about 7, and my dad never. I mean, it was really a bone of contention. So I realized that there was this was not a settled matter going in. So yeah, that makes sense. If you simply had not been, allowed to understand that there was a different way of encountering the universe than just believing this nonsense.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
Okay.
I knew there were other ways. I knew there were other religions and that there were people who were non-believers. My job was to help lead them to the Lord.
Right on.
It's not like I didn't know anything about any of the rest of them. In 9th grade, I took a comparative religions course and literally sat there going, wow, all these other religions are really wacky. I'm so glad that my family introduced me to the right one.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I can interject a little bit,
Please.
I had to deal with cognitive dissonance while I was deconstructing, and I didn't realize that that's what I was kind of going through at the time. I had this very uncomfortable, feeling about the conflicting beliefs that I had as I was getting older, and I was being exposed to people of other either other faiths or non-faiths, and being confronted with that. It was something that I really wrestled with, and it really took me a while to sort of get past it. But ultimately, I've got a very analytical brain, and so the way I resolved it was I did a deep dive on, I like hyper fixated on like the arguments for and against and everything like that. And growing up in the South, I had a lot of like horrendous sort of things that were normalized to me, and during that process, I really had to come to grips with all those horrendous things that had been normalized to me, and just being confronted with them and being asked to sort of justify it is what made me want to reconcile my beliefs. And so I wouldn't consider myself like non-intellectual at that point. I mean, I was in college, I was getting an engineering degree. I graduated not with a 4.0, but it was like a 3.5 or something like that. So, I mean, not stupid, but, not like the best in the class. But I wouldn't consider myself not smart or not intellectual at that point. I just, it's just kind of one of those things where I just hadn't considered it yet. And once I started considering it, it was kind of like a snowball effect where, it just got to the point where I had to finally admit that I didn't believe anymore. And, that's how I reconciled that cognitive dissonance there, is I accepted the new information that I had absorbed and changed my worldview. And that caused me to, leave religion and become an atheist.
Right on. Okay. Well, again, I'm not trying to make you guys feel like, oh, ain't you dumb? You believe this dumb stuff. I'm really not. I just did not get to participate in that phase of the whole project, and I just wondered, what on earth would that be like? And you provided me with some very good answers, and I'm completely satisfied.
That's our goal, is to make sure that everybody's completely satisfied. So great job, Matt.
Righteous. Hang tough, Matt.
See you. Talk to you later. It's absolutely wild. I get it, because I have friends who never believed, never part of any religion, and then I have other friends who were kind of believers for a little while, and then there's some that took it very seriously. My ex-wife Beth did a talk called "Yes, we really used to," or "Yes, we really believed that," or something like that. She did it at a convention, I believe in Pennsylvania, and I think there's video of it online. But it goes through. She got a little tired of the lifelong atheist doing the very thing that Matt was avoiding, which is, how could you guys be so stupid? I was never that stupid. And how could, talking donkey? Are you serious? And it's like, look, once you become convinced that there's a God that can do anything. And you have to become convinced of that, given all of the people around you that are advocating for this, and it being used as a potential explanation for all the things that you don't know or that nobody knows. A talking donkey is either not only a viable aspect of reality in a very specialized sense, or it's a metaphor for something. That's the problem with something, the Bible. It's like, oh, back when we don't know enough, everything is literal, or mostly literal. Then as we learn stuff, it becomes less literal, but it's still serious. You can't take it literally, but you should take it seriously. And it's a good talk, because it was evidently a surprise to some of the people who were like third and fourth generation atheists, that somebody who was functionally intelligent and could operate in society could also believe that a snake talked. And I understand it, but when I say that I don't know that I experienced cognitive dissonance, what I mean is that for no extended period of time, it's not like I was sitting around for years going, I believe this, I don't believe this, I believe this, I don't believe this. It was, I'm no longer sure what I believe. Let me keep working on it. But, all right. Moving on, we've got Greg calling from somewhere in the USA, pronouns are him, making peace with the fact that your parents won't deconvert. Hey, Greg, welcome to the show.
Hey, John. Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me. For me, I'm going to have to be like super brief, because I'm like I grind 9 to 5, like 80% of the population here in the States. But I wanted to ask about, like, as the tagline said, how to essentially make peace with one's own deconversion from religion, as well as to make peace with the fact that certain family members or friends, despite your relationship will not ever deconvert, and that the mythologies and religions that they've grown up believing will still play a part in how they live their lives, including how they treat or mistreat other people.
Yeah, John?
For me, I'll keep it as simple as that, because there was another question I wanted to ask related to political differences among atheists and how but I don't have time for that, but I'll just leave to that one.
We'll call back another time for that one, but John, what are you thinking about dealing with the fact that parents may never deconvert, etc.?
And also about boundaries, like how to know when you should set boundaries with friends or family, and what kind of boundaries if they try to drag you in, or they abuse you or something like that.
Yeah. I think setting boundaries is kind of like the first stop. At least for me, it was. I'm living in North Alabama. I've got, religious family members that are not gonna deconvert any kind of time soon, and like I've even had a call from my dad late one night trying to convince me of God, and it's it definitely is a different kind of interaction, at least for me, whenever I talk to family members, because I'm definitely not trying to alienate any family, and so you kind of have to handle with kid gloves a little bit, and that's if you want to have that conversation with people. And so I typically take a page from street epistemology, and I try to just sort of ask questions to get them to seriously consider their position, and or seriously consider the things that they're telling me, or anything like that. And I feel like the street epistemological way of doing it can be effective in getting people to either reconsider, or at least at the very least just not bring the topic up to you, because you're just going to continuously have questions for them that they can't answer. But drawing that line in the sand as far as boundaries goes, making it known, like, look, I'm not comfortable having a religious conversation with you, or a political conversation with you, or anything like that. So how about we just not talk about that? Like, if that's something that you just can't handle, or you can't engage in without it turning into like a screaming match or something like that. I always advocate for trying to prioritize, solid family ties if you can. Now, of course, that's got caveats to it, obviously. I mean, if you've got like a horribly abusive, like either emotionally, psychologically, or physically abusive, family member or something like that, my advice there is to just cut that kind of toxicity out, because you don't need to subject yourself to abuse. You're worth more than that, and you definitely need to establish to that person that you are worth more than being abused or being a punching bag for them or whatnot. Just don't subject yourself to that. So drawing that line, being firm on it, not allowing them to cross that line. And if they, but with that, with drawing the line, with establishing these boundaries, you have to be prepared to, I don't want to say cut them off, but like you need to be prepared to follow through if they continuously break those boundaries. And if you're not going to do that, then there's no point in having boundaries. So, varying different circumstances, holding to those boundaries and providing negative, response or feedback in those cases can vary, depending on the situation. But I think that being prepared to enforce your boundary, I think, is something that you need to, emotionally and psychologically prepare for, but also for yourself to maintain those boundaries.
Thanks, John. Any thoughts, Matt?
I've made peace with the fact that my parents are probably not going to change their mind. It annoys the crap out of me, and it puts a strain on the relationship, and we only talk about pedestrian affairs. We no longer dig in on religion, and that's what we do to pretty much keep the peace, because religiously and politically we are polar opposites, and they made it clear they are closed-minded on the subjects and unwilling to consider anything. And so for me, psychologically, I have difficulty with a lack of closure. That's one that's going to bug me for the rest of my life, because there's no way to get closure on it. But also, there's always the possibility that our relationship could end any minute. Almost certainly at my doing. I'd like to avoid that, but at the end of the day, my life is important enough to me and the people who are part of it that if someone is a toxic influence in my life, they can fucking go, and I don't care if they birth me or not. But I get it. I'm unusual.
Not that unusual, thankfully. But I just want to close that. We human beings are worth more than fairy tales. We live in reality, and hopefully, like, our atheist sector callers will kind of take solace in that and have hopefully find community and people willing to accept them for them and support them. But with that, I want to thank you all for doing the line, and thanks for having me on the show, if briefly.
Yeah, thanks. Feel free to call back if you get more time for other questions.
Got it.
Thanks, Craig.
Sure.
Well, we've got other callers that are queuing up right now. I'm going to get to one of them here in just a minute, but I didn't see if there was a. Oh yeah, I saw the note about young Sheldon. It's weird to be referring to yourself as the young Sheldon while suggesting other people are high intellect here, but it's strange. But I get it. It's like, oh, I was an atheist from the get-go and an antagonist to the church. That part of the character I can kind of get. Do we have a schedule to run through?
I don't have a screenshot ready, but I can just read them out while I'm here.
Let's do that. Please welcome God.
Wait, hold on. Let me get my God voice. There we go. Okay. Hey, everyone. Tomorrow. No, I can't. It's distracting me. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Time on the Transatlantic Call-In Show, it'll be myself and Mama Mephistopheles. Then there will be a Calling It Now over on Jimmy's channel. Cus I Wanna this Friday with Seth and Forrest at 6 p.m. Central Time. This Sunday, the early show is going to be Matt and Promise on the 2 p.m. show, and then it'll be Forrest and Aaron Adair on the lead show. Seth will be joining Aaron Adair for Monday's Skeptalk at 6 p.m. Central Time. Next Tuesday will be Alyssa and Taylor again, and then next week on the Hang Up right here, we'll be back with Mr. Deity.
Wait, I get Mr. Deity next Wednesday?
Yes.
Sweet. I just talked to him yesterday or a couple of days ago, really briefly in a Facebook comment. But all right. Well, on that note, let's move on to the next caller. By the way, we have no theist callers. We have no MAGA callers. I'm just going to go ahead and declare victory right now. I mean, yesterday was had to be just so cripplingly difficult for them to get through. I mean, how do you think that there's a God guiding everything and then you lose that badly in one fell swoop? Like New York, from the standpoint of the MAGA folks, New York has fallen to the Muslims. Where's the defenders of that? And by the way, it's funny that there were all these people prior to the election calling in going, I'm an atheist, but I hate the Democrats and I'm going to vote for Trump because he's going to be the president of peace. Peace. And somebody made a comment on one of my YouTube videos. It's like, why didn't you say anything praising Trump for bringing peace to Gaza? And I'm like, because it didn't fucking happen. You got to stop falling for the window dressing. It didn't fucking happen. You posted that 3 weeks ago, and it still hasn't happened. We haven't solved this stuff. You know, him solving that is even on a par with the 8 or 9 other wars that he'd like to tell you that he solved, or how his poll numbers are better than ever when they are in fact worse than ever. How the economy is when it is worse as well. Like, if you take everything that he says and reverse it, man, what a beautiful world.
I do like I like the juxtaposition that, you know, MAGA was trying to make Trump seem like the president of peace and how he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, and then after losing it, Trump's just like, I think we're just gonna kill people. Like, how can you seriously sit there and be like, oh, I'm the president of peace by killing everybody?
Yeah. And hey, we don't need to go to war. We're just going to keep killing them. We're going to keep killing them. Then we're going to keep killing boats and people on boats. And wasn't it, Arden, didn't you play a clip for me earlier of Lindsey Graham saying we're killing all the right people?
Yeah, it was something like we're killing all the right people. And then there was something else that he said we were doing. But one of those was we're killing all the right people. Yeah.
This is why there are no MAGA people calling in to defend this, because the right, not just the MAGA right, but the suck up Republican right that try to fillet every MAGist like Lindsey Graham, they're advocating for killing the right people. They're being racist. They're being bigoted. They are attacking someone who they are lying about the Democrats who would like to protect health care. And Trump's shoveling $40 billion to Argentina, and the government shutdown is officially the longest shutdown in history. It is now one day longer than the second longest shutdown in history, which happened during Trump's first term. And nobody else comes close. Trump has now had the government shut down for more days in his 2 terms than everybody else combined. I'm pretty sure. You'll have to check the numbers again, because I think I had a mark for that of when it would be more than everybody. But we talked about it recently. The economy's tanking. We're killing people. Evidently, Lindsey Graham says we're killing the right people. I wish there was, what's that? Gosh, it's been so long, I've forgotten what it's called. Is it law process. I wish they still had to show that they were actually killing the right people instead of just telling us so we could trust them, because they've thrown due process out the window. The Supreme Court might be getting ready to push back a little. How funny that they're starting to push back a little bit on tariffs, and Trump is threatening. The governor of Texas is threatening to add tariffs to anybody coming from New York. I think that was half joke, but he's so clueless and unfunny that it's hard to tell. Anyway, we got.
Did you hear?
Yeah.
Well, sorry. I was just going to add. Did you hear that in the Supreme Court testimony today, the one of Trump's people had to admit in court that the American public has to pay the tax, are the ones that pay the tariffs. So coming directly from the administration, it's not foreign countries that pay the tariffs, it's the American people. And they had to admit that in court, and that was crazy.
Kind of. I didn't hear that blatant admission. I heard him tap dance around saying, well, some of them are going to be paid by corporations, and some of them are going to be paid by this, and it's going to be done this way and that way, and it's kind of complicated. And so even if he didn't just say, yes, Americans pay for it, he was doing everything he could to avoid having to say, yes, Americans pay for it. But, all right. Well, we got more callers. Let's move on here. Soul is an atheist calling from California.
Yes.
Pronouns are he, him. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, guys. It's great to see you again. I'll be honest with you, I was happy yesterday. I felt like America got her soul back a little bit, or somehow. I mean, I was very sad since November last year. I felt like I was saying to myself, this is not America, because, I fled a fascist regime, and then I got here, and for the second time Trump was elected, I was shocked. It was a feeling I felt when it reminded me of when my uncle was murdered in a war. It was that shocking because this guy, Donald Trump, whenever he opens his mouth, he lies all the time. I mean, he cannot breathe without lying. If we talk about his personal life, about his politics, about anything, he lies always. He cannot, even when we see everything is going high and inflation is going high, he always says on TV, oh, everything is going down. And we all know that he is lying. But and that's why I'm calling, because I feel like Republicans are using fear of Mamdani as one of their games. They just want to create fear. Anyway, make you go ahead.
No, they use the buzzwords that create boogeyman. You just take any Republican speech, for any speech from MAGA, where they're trying to drum up the crowd, and look for the buzzwords. And the buzzwords are going to be trans and Muslim and tariffs. And it's so wild because trans folks represent a tiny portion of the population. And yet they're a huge part of the discussion. And similarly, there are people like John and myself and others who are wired into the discussions. We try to keep up with everything, and neither one of us, I think, are as anywhere near deep in politics as people who do it all the time. And so our view of what's happening is going to be different from the average person who hasn't bothered to watch the news, doesn't care about the news, can tell you every player on the World Series winning Los Angeles Dodgers, and couldn't tell you the name of their senators, their representatives, what just passed, who's killing who for what. They don't know. And it's just I'm just going to vote. I'm either not going to vote, or I'm going to vote for the person with the R, or the person with the D, or let's own the libs, or I'm tired of these kids, these lefty. There was a dude on Facebook, I don't know, maybe he's called in now, who posted on somebody else's page and was like bragging about his PhDs and whatever else, and he's like, these left wokeists who think that science is on their side. And I was like, hi, I'm a left wokist who definitely thinks science is on my side. Why don't you call into my show on Wednesday and school me about how wrong I am? And he's like, oh, I used to watch your stuff and I agree with you on religion, and I'd love to have a conversation on those topics. And so I posted a link to the show. That was 2 days ago, or a day and a half ago, whatever. Still hasn't called in. MAGA are cowards. They're afraid of the truth, and they are afraid of being exposed as the lying cowards that they are. It's very similar to the way a lot of religious apologists are. They know they don't have any new arguments. They know all their old arguments have been debunked. They know that they can't meet their burden of proof. And so instead, if you go watch someone like, Kent Hovind, it's, I saw him go after Simon Dan the other day. I saw Simon Dan post today that Kent Hovind was coming after him again as part of his whack and atheist thing. And I'm just like, that's all you've got. I mean, it's absolutely shtick. When you get serious scholars, both whether you're talking about, apologetics and religion and philosophy of religion, or political philosophy stuff, the people who know, they're not mired down in this nonsense about trans folks, and they're not mired down in this nonsense about let's provide evidence for a God. It is instead, these are the things that people find important. These are the things that people value in their lives. And then it just becomes an attack of, bald assertions that are almost always completely the opposite of reality.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thanks for calling. So I got to move on to some other callers, but yes, I share your frustration. And I don't think America got its soul back. But I now see a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel.
Thank you. I mean, I just want to say that I might disagree with many things that Mamdani says, but that doesn't mean that I judge him just because he's a Muslim. I have to see what he's going to do and his policies, and then I can say like he's like a successful politician or not. And I appreciate you guys, and keep going. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. All right. We've got Russell calling from Arkansas, pronouns are he, him. Hey, Russell, how you doing?
Doing just fine. Hey, y'all guys doing okay today?
Today is better than yesterday.
Right.
Well, the day before yesterday, I guess.
Well, I was wanting to ask you, when you walked down the aisle at age 5, did you know anything about biology or geology or cosmology or anything like that?
No, not really.
Well, don't you blame your parents for telling you a bunch of silly stuff, about talking snakes and a rib turned into a woman and all the animals was all in one boat? You seem like you want to just give them a pass, Well, they were brainwashed and they.
So my parents and the pastors thought they were right and thought they were doing the right thing. There was no malice, no intent or anything else. I'm more mad at them now that they have completely closed off any hope of discussion or any hope of recognizing that they were in fact wrong. I'm more mad that they used to beat me with a belt than I am that they told me about Jesus. I got over both of them, but one of them's actual abuse and the other one's a mistake where they are just as much a victim as I was. They were taught and indoctrinated. And so while there's a temptation to be mad at them, and I can be mad at them about a number of things, I'm not mad at them for trying to be the best parents and doing what they thought was right.
Well, when you got to be an adult, you tried to educate yourself. I've listened to you long enough to tell that you spent some time educating yourself. Why couldn't your parents educate themselves a little bit?
They first of all, it was a slightly different time. They didn't have access to the information in the same way that I did, with news media and the internet and things like that. I did most of my studying after we had, websites. It wasn't just like, I went down to the public library and researched all this. Most of it, they didn't have access to that. They also weren't in a position to be challenged or have any reason to be challenged. I left and went in the Navy. My dad had been in the Navy before, but came back and, it was Navy during Vietnam. It was not the Navy that I was in. And so my life and the things that I had access to were different than theirs. That's why I say I'm more mad at them now, because now they absolutely have the opportunity to learn, and they're just, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. But that has nothing to do with why they taught me something when I was 5.
Well, I remember we got cable TV. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when I was growing up, it was just kind of one of those things that was like, just sort of like standard set of beliefs. So like we all had this one map of reality that included God and Jesus and all that. And there was no reason for us to question it. Like Matt was saying, there was just, for my family specifically, like we really weren't all that involved in church. Like we were involved in church in that we felt like we knew we had to go to church, and that was just something that we knew that we needed to do. And like I grew up Catholic, so like I knew that I needed to go through all the Catholic like classes and everything. My mom had to draw the cross on my forehead with the ashes and everything like that. And I did all that because I was just told that this is just what you do. And so like growing up like that, I was very much taught to just believe what my parents said. And that was a bit of a detrimental thing. I've corrected that. I don't teach my son to just believe what I say. I normally, come to him and I give him justifications for it and everything that I want him to do. And so, I've recognized that and I've changed it so that I can kind of break that cycle. But like, I guess I don't blame my parents for not breaking the cycle in that respect, because we really didn't have anything that challenged us in the way that would cause us to break the cycle, So it wasn't until I got exposed to like people of other walks of life, religion and non-religion and different philosophies and everything, until I got exposed to that through college, which I'm not the first one in my family to go to college. My mom went to college, and I think that her and probably her sister were the first to go to college. But like, as soon as I started to go to college, obviously I got exposed to all that and it came crumbling down. But I don't blame my parents for not being challenged in a way that would cause them to question things. Now, my dad, he's still Catholic and he still believes in God, but he's really come like a pretty far ways away from like the kind of Catholics that go to church every single Sunday and like are very devout and everything like that. Like he's very lackadaisically a Catholic now.
Well, I was raised in one of them batshit churches, where they really believed that Adam and Eve was the first 2 people, and that Mount Everest got flooded and all the animals was all on one boat, And I remember when I was 12 years old, I didn't believe that all the animals was all on one boat, And you couldn't question them or nothing.
Yeah, I remember writing in like a journal that I had like a revelation, and I'm like, if Adam and Eve were the first 2 people, then we're all related to one another. And it's like, wow, that seems a bit weird. And then I didn't give it another thought.
Well, what about the world getting flooded? You Do you believe all the animals was all on one boat and the whole world was underwater for a year?
Yes, I believed all of that.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
Matt,
and
you've been
me
a
as a
lecture
kid,
once.
I did.
You've
Sorry,
been a
I was just
lecture
going to
once
say
about
that
they Go ahead, John.
I was just going to say I never really gave it too much thought. Like, I believe that, but I didn't give it a lot of deep intellectual thought. I just sort of was told that, and I adopted it as like part of my worldview. Like, that's just, oh yeah, sure, world flooded. Yeah, that's obvious. God was pissed, kind of thing. Like,
Why is it ridiculous to believe that if you believe there's a God who can do that?
Well, I guess I didn't really believe in a God too much, probably.
Why
When
not?
somebody tells you wasn't a real Christian, tell them you believed all that stuff and you was a real Christian.
That's so. I'm really confused because I have no idea what a real Christian is or how you or I can say what a real Christian is. All I can do is tell you that I believe stuff, because if you believe that there's a God who can do those things, it's not ridiculous. And it is fallacious to assert that it's ridiculous based on the proposition that there is no God. That makes it a positive claim that you would need to demonstrate. See, even before I figured out what the actual problems were, I understood logic enough to not go down that route.
Well,
But
once I educated myself, there's not enough water on Earth to flood the whole Earth,
why is that a problem for a God?
Oh, he just magicked all the water in there.
You don't think the God that can create the entire universe can create enough water to flood the earth?
Well, I guess he can, but I
guess he can. What other objections? Come on now, educated myself. What other objections would you have used back when I was a believer to explain to me how you're confident that it's all hokey?
Well, I just common sense,
Common sense? What does common sense have to do with it? We're talking about what actually happened or didn't happen. Is God, is it just common sense that there's no God? How'd you determine that?
Well, all the claims, about God, you think all the
What claim
after
do
the
they
flood,
make?
we had Noah
What
and
claim
his
do they
family.
make? What claim do they make that isn't possible for God?
Oh, well, all the Noah and his family and all the 8 billion people that come after him, there's not enough time for that if the world's only 6,000 years old.
You don't think God can handle that? And by the way, so first of all, the earth, it doesn't necessarily have to be 6 to 10,000 years old. But it could be. God, what is it that you think they claim that you think God couldn't do?
Oh, well, I guess if you believe in magic, there's probably nothing he couldn't do,
It's not a matter of belief. It's not a matter of what I believe. It is, here's the proposition that God can do these things. And in order for you to say that just isn't possible, then you need to be able to show what God can and can't do, which means you need to be able to demonstrate that God can't do something that Christianity claims he did. How do you do that?
Well, first you have to show there is a God to do something.
No, you don't. No, you're asserting that it's not possible, and you're using that as a justification for why you don't believe in a God. That is a fallacy.
Oh, okay.
Maybe don't run around beating up 5-year-olds for not figuring out what you falsely figured out. Thanks, Russell.
Well, I didn't, Okay.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
People are going to believe for different reasons. People are going to have different lives. People are going to have access to different information at different times. It's one thing to say, wow, I had to educate myself. Did you educate yourself by the time you were fucking 5? Maybe you went to the wrong church. Maybe I went to the right church and you went to the wrong church, which is exactly what they'd tell me. It is wild to be. I get that, it's like, oh, I don't see how you didn't figure this shit out. Maybe part of it is because when you think you figured it out, you just went with your gut and reached conclusions that were fallacious. That's not something to be proud of. Being right by accident, even if you're right, which is not like we've falsified every god. It's bizarre. I get it. People are, oh, I just don't understand why it took you so long to figure it out. Well, I can tell you this. When my beliefs were properly challenged, which happened by me in an attempt to defend them, they didn't last. But people don't change without some motivation. If you're one of the handful there, Russell, that like I had people come up and say, "Oh, I was an atheist the whole time. I never believed any of it." Cool. Maybe you're smarter. Maybe you're more rational. Maybe you are just wired to be an obstinate troublemaker and reject authority. Who knows what the reason is? But if you can't explain at the time that you don't believe why you're rejecting a position that someone is claiming, not why it's false, but why you're rejecting it, then I don't care that you happened to not believe it. And if all these years later, your defense is awful and fallacious, then it just feels like, yep, it never stuck with me. And that's fine. You know why it stuck with other people? Different teachers, different environments, different families. Some of them are going to focus on, it's not like we went to church every Sunday and talked about whether or not there was enough water to flood the earth. That was never discussed. There weren't even public challenges to that. I was a Christian back at the time when the traveling preachers were raising money for the Lottie Moon offering, and where you had preachers running around getting people to burn their rock and roll records because of backward masking, and people saying that there were secret satanic cults sacrificing people around town, just around town. And it's because people didn't know enough. And you didn't have a 24-hour news cycle, and you didn't have an internet. You didn't have any way to go look it up, even if you were interested. This is one of the reasons why I'm a little more lenient with some modern, younger politicians in particular, because I would bet if we went and looked at every one of the old politicians, if we knew as much about their youth as we know about the youth of this next generation of politicians, I bet they would fare as bad or worse. Almost certainly worse. I mean, there's fucking jokes from 20 years ago that wouldn't fly today. I mean, we learn more. Anyway, enough of that sermon. We got other callers. Rick's calling from California, pronouns he, him, recently deconverted from JW, former elder, wife still indoctrinated, marriage done. Okay. Well, Rick, how can we help?
Hey, Matt, how are you? And John, thank you for taking my call. And thank you for calling out even atheists when they're condescending, because I also don't appreciate that. I consider myself, in average intelligence, smart enough. I was top of my class back in Mexico, got to meet the president of my country, and yet I was fully indoctrinated into a cult, right? And until a couple of years ago. So I don't think it's a matter of intelligence, but as you said, challenging your own beliefs. And I didn't do that until a few years ago. But anyway, so I appreciate that. I'm struggling a little bit because recently they converted. I've started voting. In fact, last year was my first time I ever voted. And I feel ill-prepared, because all this time, I don't know how much you guys know about Jehovah's Witnesses, but they claim they are completely apolitical and neutral and blah, blah, blah. And so therefore, me being a good Jehovah's Witness, I try not to get involved. But inevitably, of course, you have an opinion on things. And now that I'm voting, it's like, I can't make up for the time I lost, but I certainly would like to. I like to be involved. I like to help, and yet I still find myself going back to certain thoughts that I don't think they're right. For instance, Jehovah's Witnesses will say something to the effect of, well, why vote for humans when humans cannot solve the problems in the world, right? And it's like, I find myself thinking that sometimes, and I go, wait a minute, that's a stupid thought. Yeah, of course, no candidate is going to be able to solve everybody's problems. That doesn't mean I shouldn't get involved. So that's it. I just wanted to pick your guys' brain about that.
Yeah. John, you got thoughts? I wasn't a JW. I know Eric was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Owen, right?
I was never really part of any kind of high control like version of religion. But I guess sorry, I got distracted by comments and everything. Rick, is your question like how to? Can you repeat your question? I'm so sorry.
No, it's quite all right. I tend to speak a lot. I guess basically it's for someone who's sort of a virgin into politics. How do I, get educated other than just reading up on stuff? I guess so that I can know how to go about it. I have a 15-year-old daughter who's also not a JW. We're the only rebels in the family. She's very much into wanting to fix the world, right? She's very idealistic, and of course, you'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, well, so for me, I mean, I pay attention to either local news or national news about what's going on, and then like if there's anything that comes up and I question it, or like I don't know exactly like how to feel about a certain thing, I'll do a deep dive. Like I'll hyperfixate on that topic for like a day or something like that, and I'll go and I'll look and I'll see what experts say about something. I don't go to like random blogs on the internet, kind of thing. I try to get expert opinion. I'll try to get some kind of like if it's a scientifically based topic, trying to get some white papers or something like that to kind of educate myself on it. Look at organizations out there that deal directly with whatever topic you're talking about. So it's kind of hard, I guess, for me to tell you specifics, because like whenever there's like some kind of political topic that comes up in the news or is being talked about online or something like that, I usually just have to do the research, and then I thoughtfully come to a conclusion about it. I try to make sure that I have good justification for having my position. And as far as being knowledgeable and just being in the conversation, I think that's the best way to go. But very obviously, when it comes up to voting, just be knowledgeable about who you're voting for, understand what their platforms are, or what the measure is. Yeah, what the measure is that you're voting for or against, so that you can accurately vote, and that if anybody asks you about it, you can correctly, justify your position. Because other people are probably wanting to sort of figure out and navigate that kind of political landscape too. So, that's what I would suggest.
I guess I appreciate that. I guess I'm already doing that. It's just that my call is more like to share how harmful, even in those aspects, religion can be. Right? At least it has been for me. And it's like I'm already 48 years old, and I feel very prepared about a lot of things in life. But yet, being out of religion, it's like completely a new world. As soon as my coworkers heard I was no longer identifying as a Jehovah's Witness, of course they tried to convert me into whatever version of Christianity they had, and tried to tell me I was going to burn in hell and all of that. And I was like, by then I had already, watched enough debates with the Harrises and Dillahunties, etc., with you guys, that I felt prepared. But I was like, well, you're going to be willing to listen to my arguments, right? And but then you come across people that are so intolerant, that'll talk about we got to defend our right to bear arms. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, I have nothing against that, but have you considered, also the negative effects of uncontrolled, weapons and all of that? But I still, like I said, it's very new to me. I'm actually enjoying it, but I just thought I would share my experience. It's never too late, and I mean, I'm enjoying it. I just wish I were more prepared. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm going to say.
I would say that. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about it, Rick. I can't imagine. Like, I was apolitical for a number of years, but it wasn't because my church told me to be. As a matter of fact, I think I probably would have been a little more political a little sooner if it had been encouraged. I was a Rush Limbaugh ditto head for a period of time while I was in the military, and it's in part because my mom introduced me to him, and I knew nothing, and so it was like getting a long sermon at lunch just to go out and have a bag of McDonald's and sit in my car and listen to Rush for an hour of his 3-hour show, and then buy the books.
Wow.
And it's like, if you don't investigate the opposition at all, people who are wrong can be very convincing when you don't know anything.
That's it. Can I share something real interesting about JWs in that regard? I still keep up with watching the stuff they have, if only to criticize it, right? Just recently, they had a video about quote-unquote apostates, right? And the guy that's supposed to be the bad guy on the video, these are big productions that they do. The guy just tells the other JW that's supposed to be spiritually strong, he says, listen, man, I just sent you a video. Did you look at it? And he's like, no. And then they cut to a scene of the devil tempting Jesus, right? As if that's somehow, synonymous. And then he goes, the bad guy goes, hey, if you haven't even watched the video, how do you even know that it's wrong? And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, that's a good point. And yet they showed it to everybody, all the 8 million or whatever witnesses they have. And now they're trained to simply reject something without even looking at it, just because now they have a mental image of Jesus saying, get away from me, Satan, or get behind me, Satan, or whatever it might be. So it's just amazing to look at things from a new perspective now and realize how, if you just accept something as authoritative, in this case, they accept their governing body, their leaders, just as I did. I honestly very much felt like I even loved those guys, right? I would have defended those guys because I literally believe that they talk to Jesus. And now that I don't, it all crumbles. Right?
Yeah. I think that in the political realm, I started engaging as I learned more and as I became more comfortable. As soon as I figured out why I was wrong in agreeing with Limbaugh on a number of things, it helped encourage me to be like, what else am I wrong about? And most, if you ask most Americans, not only do they not know anything about socialism or communism, the only thing they know is they equal bad. And they don't know why. They don't know, have an understanding of either the economic or the political structures or what is potentially wrong with them. And they couldn't even tell you, for the most part, even if they felt that it was bad, which one was worse, capitalism or socialism or some version of that. Or, it doesn't matter what it is. It's we tend to run on our gut. And when I found out that I couldn't do that, all of a sudden being involved in politics was not only easier, it was essential. And I think you just give yourself some time. You have an interest. Your daughter has an interest. You guys can volunteer to help out with some campaigns. You can volunteer to phone bank for people or organizations on issues that you guys feel passionately about. And build her a resume so that if she maintains her interest in politics, we can be voting for her in 10 years.
I'm a language interpreter, so I just recently did a job for a local senator, and I just happened to take my daughter with me. Wasn't even thinking just there was nobody to babysit her. Anyways, she went along, and she's like, "Oh, those girls look my age." I'm like, "Yeah, they're high school volunteers." And she's like, "I want to do that," So we're getting started. It's just that it's frustrating. I think about like coming from Mexico. I don't know if you guys know like the whole thing that's happening in Mexico with the judges and the judicial system. They're basically being replaced by just some bozos just by voting and that have no qualifications. It's horrible. And I feel like if I had been awake from religion, I might even have chosen to remain in my country and run for office. As it is, I don't think I can ever run for office. I'm a citizen, but I'm not a U.S. born, person. But
You can run for all kinds of office. You just can't run for president. So, for example,
okay.
Mamdani is now going to be the mayor of New York. He was born in Uganda and became a naturalized citizen. So you don't have to be born here to run. And honestly, at this point, several people posted on my Facebook page when I mentioned that I voted. Somebody described how they chose to vote when they moved to a new place. And while I would never say this is the best way to do it, I have done exactly this before. Not when I show up at a new place, but if I'm there and I'm not familiar with the various candidates, I will do my best rather than leaving it blank to either go with the party that I'm more closely aligned with. But if there's multiples on there, I will tend to pick obviously women's names and names that I think sound foreign to this doesn't happen. I mean, this happened like 2 or 3 times, but somebody was saying they moved to a new town. They didn't know who to vote for. So they just voted for women and people with foreign sounding names. And I was like, it's a really bad idea about how to actually govern and pick the people who are governing. But when you know enough about the system to know how it's broken and how a lot of those people are going to be disadvantaged from the get-go, it is possibly better than just throwing your vote away. But
got it.
I found it funny that other people were saying they did that.
Yeah, last year when I voted, we do get a pamphlet. It's my very first time. And I had a lot of information. I felt like, okay, I have to study this. I literally took some time during my lunch breaks at work and studied the whole pamphlet. And my daughter was like, "Dad, I don't think most people do that, but I'm proud of you for doing that." And I'm like, "Thank you." I feel like that's the only way to do it, But anyways, thank you guys. I have taken enough time, but I just I do enjoy what you all do. If I ever could have a dream come true, would be to host with you guys. But it's just helped me so much in my life. I mean, I started watching the debates. I started with Hitchens and Harris and you, Matt, and others. And it's just like, I'll be honest, the first time I heard one of your debates, I'm like, all right, that guy's a jerk. But you know what? He makes a lot of sense. I don't think you're a jerk, for the record. But now I realize the frustration of some of those debates, But I'm saying, like, I could not find the logic, and I just have to admit that it made sense to me. So I just appreciate like everything you guys do, and you, John, are funny too. Yeah, I enjoy your things, so appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Rick. I appreciate that. Keep going. Maybe someday we'll do a show together. And then on the other hand, maybe we won't, and you'll find out I'm really even more of a jerk than you ever thought, and you'll want nothing to do with me. Either way, at least you've escaped JW and are engaging in politics now, and we appreciate the call.
All right, sounds good. Take care, you guys. Bye.
Take care, Rick.
Bye.
So we've got one caller right now that we're getting ready to go to, but before we do, I just want to mention a few things. First of all, thanks everybody for tuning in, and for the people who are calling. The lines are still open, especially if we get a theist or somebody who wants to argue something. But I'm going to put out a challenge. First of all, I'm going to challenge the people who are here all the time, since there's about 1,200 of you right now, a bunch of you haven't clicked like. So you need to click like. You should probably click subscribe. You may want to consider clicking join. You might want to go to linemerce.com. You might want to go to patreon.com/call the line to support the network. But even if you can't do any of that, I mean, you should be able to click the like. If you're in such bad shape that you can't even click the like, it says 420 now. We should keep it right there. Oops. Sorry, it got ruined. If you can't even click the like, I don't know how you got here. But here's the challenge. If you're a theist of any stripe and you don't think you're ready to defend your beliefs thoroughly, publicly, that's fine. But I don't want to be accused of straw manning other people's beliefs. And so tonight, maybe tonight only, if it works out, maybe we'll make something of it at some point. You are welcome to call in. And all you have to do is say, I'm not going to debate, but I believe in God because, then give us your one brief reason. John and I will then address it. And we will not, you will have the opportunity to reply to what we say, but it won't be required. If you just want to say, I believe in God because, and then give your one reason, so that we can make sure we're addressing what people honestly believe, and then say, okay, thanks, bye. That's fine too. I'm trying to avoid that. You can do the same thing, by the way, by saying atheist, secularist, leftist, whatever, are wrong on this issue. Boom. And we'll give you our thoughts and no defense required. But then I'm not misrepresenting anybody. By the way, tonight we're going to read all the super chats, $5 and over. As soon as we're done with the last caller, we'll read those out. Well, till they're gone. Normally it's been 10, but I get that there's a lot going on right now. And, sometimes we want to make sure that if we're not getting flooded to the point where I'm going to end up doing a 5-hour show, let's be honest, I'm really not going to be able to do too many 5-hour shows. They either need to be 3 hours or 9 hours. If 5 is just that gap in the middle between a good show and a forest level show. But we have a call with a question or a topic that I don't know enough about. So let's dig in. AJ's calling from New York, wants to talk about the genealogy of Jesus, pronouns he, him. Welcome, AJ. You're on with John and Matt.
Hello. I would like to first say that I celebrated my...
I'm sorry, there's something going on with your audio. Your mic is crackling and everything. We can't understand a thing you're saying.
I'm sorry. That better now?
Talk a little bit more.
Maybe.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it clear? Okay. I'd like to say that, this is the second time I spoke to you, Matt, and it's quite a thrill. I've been an atheist for 16 years on my birthday last month, and I'm going through some trouble with my family because they're all Catholics. And but my question is about the genealogy of Jesus Christ. They have like 2 versions of it, and I see that the first person, I believe, was Joseph. And I'm still trying to figure out how does Joseph get involved connected to Jesus unless he was the father?
Good question. So,
and there's 2 versions, and the only way that I can see him is that he is the father, and that she was not really a virgin.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this.
Yeah, that's
what. So virginity is a bullshit concept, and it doesn't matter. But to the extent that she was pregnant without ever having had sex, that could have resulted in pregnancy. I get that is a reasonable inference, but it has nothing to do with the genealogy. The differences between the genealogy, the different names that are listed, the different number of generations that are there, and the fact that they list it through Joseph aren't relevant to whether or not Mary was a virgin or whether or not Jesus was divine. First of all, none of this may have happened. I mean, John's a mythicist, and mythicists would say that the genealogies, I'm assuming that they just say these are, another invented fictional part of the story. The answer to your question is nobody has any idea, and there's no reason to think anything about these genealogies are real. We have no way of verifying anything. They couldn't even verify it and keep it straight between them. But that tells you nothing at all about whether or not the underlying stories.
They don't even have the historical information of Jesus. It's like, poof. What about it when he was a child and when he grew up?
The right question for me is, if you're writing, so first of all, you got to remember that the authors of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or Matthew and Luke, since that's where the genealogies are. The authors of those books are unknown. We don't have any original copies. And it's debatable how much they knew about each other. And so and also there's no reason to think that any of them thought they were going to be writing down a genealogy that was going to live forever in a collection of books alongside other potential genealogies. This is just oral traditions and histories that people recorded. Now, there's a recording of me in this show right now. And I bet you could go to any one of the callers and ask them about a specific sentence that I said at some point during the call. And they wouldn't remember exactly what I said word for word. They wouldn't maybe even remember what the gist of it was. The notion that these people had better records is silly. The notice that they had the idea that they had better memories is silly. The notion that they are accurately recording the words and deeds and everything is also, I think, silly. So I've never spent, I don't think I've done a video on it. I've done 20 years of content and 13 years of videos, 3 or 4 a month on my own channel. I don't think I've ever done a video about the genealogies because I don't care and they're not relevant. The fact that there's disagreement is not surprising. It's also not defeating because people can say, well, whether or not the authors of these got this information wrong doesn't change whether or not the story is real. And once people are convinced that they have a relationship with the risen Christ who has transformed their lives, who gives a fuck about the genealogy?
This is too much to come into. But, yeah, it's just that you were talking about the genealogy. I remember back when I was 10 years old and they tried to indoctrinate me. And basically, the first thing that happened to me was that I was the only left-handed person in the classroom. And the nun, the traditional penguin costume, came up to me and smacked my hand with a steel ruler and told me that's the hand of the devil. And I told her, no, this is my hand. The hand of the devil is red. And next thing I know, I'm after classes and she's bawling me out for being a smartass. Imagine a grown person talking to a 10-year-old that's giving you questions, statements that only a 10-year-old could, understand. Well, next week they switched me over to the pews where the priest was, giving us the story about Jesus Christ, and I'll be always asking questions like, where did God come from? And that's the first time I ever heard the word blasphemy. And I'm like, what is blasphemy? And later on, I kept asking questions like, why does God need to take a day's rest when he's all powerful? Questions like that.
Except that a lot of those questions, a lot of those questions have good apologetic answers. Like, for example, God didn't need to take a rest. What those verses say at the end of the creation event is essentially that he stopped.
Well, I was a 10-year-old at that time. I could understand what they said that he
that's part of the problem. That's part of the problem is that it's not clear And yeah, so the Catholic Church in particular was awful about left-handedness, which was viewed as sinister. They were awful about, I don't know, 23 other things, including stealing babies from unwed mothers, and hiding, shuffling
My
priests
mother
around.
went through that when she got divorced from my father, and she used to take us all together when she was married to church. Then after she got divorced, I discovered that they would not allow her to come to church because she's a divorced woman. This is in 1964, so you can imagine, they had corporal punishment and misogyny to the max. Women are not allowed to have driver's license or credit cards, and it was pretty risky at that time. And so I grew up a little bit disgusted with the church because of that, and it was pretty bad. They sent a postcard to my mother saying that I was cutting classes. I took my mother over to the priest, introduced her. You know what the son of a bee said to her? I never seen this kid before in my life. Now, I was stuck between a rock and a hard place because a 10-year-old kid accusing a priest to lie is not that favorable in my perspective. Needless to say, I got a whipping that night, and I kept my mouth shut after that, going through the whole ceremony with confirmation, communion, dress up in one of those holy dresses, made me felt like I was going for a drag queen. But
I would recommend. I'd recommend if you feel so inclined to reach out to the Secular Therapy Project and see if there's somebody to talk to you about this to help you get past some of it. Maybe you're fine, and this is just a venting thing. I got to move on to some other callers, but yeah, I don't worry that much about the genealogy of Jesus until they can demonstrate what the genealogy actually is and why anybody should give a fuck. Then it's just propaganda to try to show that the story they're inventing, whether it tied to a real person or not, is about fulfilling prophecy from a particular perspective. But anyway, thanks for the call, AJ.
Thank you. And one more thing, we got a new mayor. I'm so happy.
Yeah, congrats. I hope
Thank you very much, Matt. I'm still watching on your show right now.
Oh shit! Sorry, that was an accidental click. I was hovering. Damn it!
That was the hang up.
Welcome to the hang up. You just got served unintentionally, but you did. All right. So we have a theist caller and a spiritual caller, and these will probably be the last couple calls before we get on to super chats. But is it Yonatan? Yonatan?
Yes, it's Yonatan. It's like John, but
okay, I get it. Like Jonathan. Yeah, calling from Sweden, pronouns he, him. You say it's reasonable to believe in God using Pascal's wager. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I think that I'm not I would say I'm somewhere in between. Like I would say I'm a theist, but not not a convinced one, rather. Not a strong theist. So I just want to make make a case for why believing in a religion, let's say Christianity, using Pascal's wager is reasonable, because the benefits outweigh the downsides. Like imagine if it's real, you would have you would have like heaven, whatever. But if it's not real, and again, I'm not arguing for like changing your life, giving up anything you do. Just the act of believing in and of itself. Wouldn't you say? I don't think you would say, but like just for argument's sake, wouldn't that be a good reason to believe?
The act of believing is a good reason to believe. I'm going to let John jump in on this.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I mean,
sorry.
I feel like you have a bit of an idealized sort of construction here, because it's like you have this, you're presenting this form of Christianity where it's purely faith based, and like it's as long as you believe in God, then and Jesus and all that, then you get into heaven, and that's better than going to hell. I mean, I guess where I start off at is, how do you know that's the version of the Christian God that exists? What if the real version of the Christian God that exists is the one that requires both faith and works? What if the version of God, like how did you decide that that is the specific version of God that exists, and that believing in that God is better than not?
Okay, so I hear you, and I would just say that I think you could apply Pascal's wager. I think you could like zoom out and have a bird's eye view. So basically, I think Blaise Pascal. He, if you put it up, if you put up a table or whatever, you have a. If you believe in God, and if God exists, there's infinite reward, eternal life. And if God does not exist, there's a finite loss of time, effort, so on. If you don't believe in God,
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like we understand the whole Pascal's wager thing and what you're trying to build there, but I mean, you still haven't answered my question of how do you know which God it is? Because like you can't just say you have, like, just believing in the God is going to get you into heaven, because you're not actually answering like, how do you know? Well, yeah, but how do you know? Because each, for instance, a Muslim. No, I understand that, but my point is that each God has their own stipulations for what it means to get into heaven. Like, you can't believe in just a generic God, and if the Muslim God, Allah, is the one that exists, then you're not going to get into heaven just because you generally believe in a God. The same thing for Christian, for the Christian faith, and then you're not even considering all the other faiths that exist out there that also have deities, that also have stipulations as to what it takes to get into heaven.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Now I get your point. Okay. So that's a good point, because obviously different gods have different like structures and whatever requirements for believers. That makes total sense. The Muslim God is not the same as the Christian God, etc. So in that case, couldn't a believer say like, okay, I'll stick with this God? Let's say it's a Christian God, or I don't know, the Jewish God or whatever.
Sorry, did my headset go out, or is he still talking?
We can't hear you. You probably have to tap your phone to wake it back up. You understand? We can't hear you. If you're on your phone, you're going to need to tap your phone and tap the browser. But I tell you what, I'm gonna answer this, and we're just going to drop you, because there's one other caller I don't want to keep hanging on, so that we can spend time on the most obviously broken and ridiculous argument ever. So first of all, Pascal was only arguing on behalf of a specific version of atheism, in contrast with, or a specific version of Christianity, in contrast with atheism. That's it. Pascal's wager doesn't apply to anything else. Pascal also pointed out that you cannot, the belief isn't subject to choice, and so if you find that you're not convincing, you should try to fool yourself and trick yourself into believing. Meanwhile, the problems with Pascal's wager are many. There was the first video I did for the Atheist Debates Patreon project 13 some odd years ago. Which heaven do you seek? Do you try to seek the best heaven, or do you try to avoid the worst hell? And as John was pointing out, which is the real God and what is their criteria? Because if you believe in, let's say, the Christian God, but you don't do things the way the actual existing God wants, whether it's the Christian God or a Muslim God or Jewish God or whatever, maybe the criteria isn't just belief. And certainly, as John was pointing out, the criteria for God A isn't, well, he believes in God C or God X or God Y, so we'll just give him a pass. There are very few gods that might fit that. There might be a God out there, but any God that would do that should also be able to reward an honest intellectual response, which is, I don't have good enough evidence to believe in any of them. What if the way to get into heaven is to recognize that it is an untestable, unfalsifiable proposition that you don't have enough evidence to make a conclusion about, and God is judging based on who's gullible enough to pretend like they know shit and believe shit they don't fucking know, and is going to send all those people to annihilation or torment, and then just reward the people who just said, I don't have enough information to reach a conclusion, but it doesn't seem like it's real. Otherwise, what's the purpose in God hiding himself? But here we go. Tracy gets to be our final caller for tonight. Tracy's calling from New York. Pronouns he, him. Tracy's spiritual and consciousness is his God, and his creators are his parents. So welcome, Tracy. Why would consciousness be a God?
Because it is our true selves, and it is I've come to believe this is our true selves. That is the God, the consciousness that I experience and that you experience is shared from, I could go back to the first microbe and through evolving and adapting to for the purpose and reproducing for the purpose of staying alive, which is
I don't understand what any of that.
Die.
I don't understand what any of that has to do with.
The reason why is our creator.
I don't know why any of that is justification for believing that consciousness is God, but also I don't believe I share the same consciousness as the first microbes. I have no reason to think they were conscious at all. I don't even think I share the same consciousness as any other being in the universe.
Oh, well, I watch you guys a lot, so I know that you're on the other side of the fence of where I stand. So I am familiar with the hard problem of consciousness, at one side being dualist, at one side being materialist. So I'm on the dualist side.
Tracy, that has nothing to do with what I just said.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The hard problem of consciousness has nothing to do with whether or not I share the same consciousness as any other living thing ever in the history of the universe. And none of that has anything to do with whether or not that qualifies our consciousness as being a God. None of that has anything to do with the hard problem of consciousness. I'm asking you to explain how is it that why do you think that you and I share the same consciousness, and why do you think it's justified to call that God if we did?
Again, like I said, I believe that it is our consciousness that keeps us going and originally created us from the beginning, from the first microbe. Also, the way I define life. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, I have no idea what your concept of consciousness is.
I understand that.
Do you think that consciousness?
Okay.
Do you think that consciousness can exist outside of a brain?
I'm going to say yes, but I have no proof.
Why? Why do you believe that?
Because I believe that there could be a car that's made, and it could be as smart and done as everything, but somebody has to program that car, or a computer could be AI or whatever. Somebody has to program it. It needs some kind of thing that programs it, and that program we have, and we all see it. And when I actually wrote a book that I actually wanted you guys to be the first peer reviews. Going in with that, knowing that you probably won't agree with that, but go ahead.
We're not peers, because you're spewing gobbledygook right now. I asked what if you had reason to think that consciousness could exist absent a brain, And you said yes, but you don't have a reason. And so if you're going to run around believing things without a reason, that is bias, that is prejudice, that is irrational. If you don't have a reason for thinking that consciousness
I do
can
have a
exist,
reason. I just said I didn't have proof. I do have a reason. My reason
I didn't ask for Tracy. You got to learn to listen better. I have never asked for proof. Proof is a mathematical concept. Not once in any serious context have I asked any caller to prove something. I asked them, why do they believe? I asked you why you believed it. I'm looking for a demonstration. I'm looking for an evidence-based argument to support the notion that consciousness can exist outside of a brain. Because until you do that, you can have no justification for claiming that consciousness precedes us.
Okay. All right. What about the pattern that we've always witnessed as far as consciousness going from one life form to the other?
I've never witnessed consciousness going from one life form to another.
All right. Let's maybe, if I should put it this way, and what about the fact that we've never witnessed consciousness come from something outside of another life form?
No, Tracy, you said there's a pattern we've all witnessed, and that is consciousness moving from one person to another. And when I said I've never witnessed that, you just skipped right past it without trying to defend it at all and went on to something else. What evidence do you have that consciousness moves from one person to another?
The pattern of life that's I appreciate your hard questioning. I needed this. The pattern. So
what pattern? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and neither do you, Tracy. What pattern? You claimed there was a pattern we all saw. I said I don't see it. I asked you about it. You don't just get to say the pattern. What is it you're talking about?
I'm talking about, like, I'm gonna use me as an example. Okay. I came from my mother and father.
You did, but your consciousness did not.
Right. Excuse me?
You came from your mother and father, but that doesn't mean your consciousness came from them.
Doesn't believe my consciousness. Like I said, I define my consciousness as my awareness. And that awareness, as far as I've seen and other people have seen and through my research, has always came from another, from what anybody can, from what most people define as consciousness, that whether it's humans, dogs, and I even include bacteria and viruses and other small microorganisms.
Then you need to do a lot of work, because you're talking about the research you've done. I don't think you have any expertise or even qualifications to do research in this area, because you don't seem to even understand what consciousness is. If you think bacteria are conscious, you have a fuck ton of work to do to demonstrate that and win yourself a Nobel Prize.
I appreciate that. Can I hear your definition of consciousness?
Self-awareness.
Okay. Well, well, that's the one thing I agree with you as far as that. Okay. Outside of that, you're saying I got work to do. Fair enough. Like I said, I was doing it based on the pattern.
I'm just amazed you wrote a book. Like, I'm amazed you. I promise I'm not just trying to be a dick, but I do find this a little annoying in that you seem to be one of the biggest cases of Dunning-Kruger effect I've ever heard of, because you wrote a book and talk about the research you're doing, and you think that bacteria are conscious and everything's conscious and consciousness moves from person to person, and that this is a pattern we all see. It's not a pattern anybody sees other than you and people who don't bother to demonstrate the truth of things. Consciousness. I'm conscious. I am the product of my parents, but my parents' consciousness didn't transfer to me. The sperm wasn't conscious. The egg wasn't conscious. The fertilized cells weren't conscious. Consciousness, as far as we can tell, requires a brain. And cognitive ability in a developing fetus does not begin at conception. At best, there might be consciousness late, like in 20th week afterwards, of some variety. However, none of that is consciousness that came from somewhere. It appears to be that a mind is a product of what the brain does, that the process of taking in information, processing it, and making decisions, no matter how mechanical it may be, no matter how deterministic it may be, produces as a perhaps byproduct, or maybe as an intended product, if somebody can demonstrate that, a conscious self-awareness. It didn't come from somebody somewhere else, any more than the wetness of water came from the wetness of water on some other planet. You have to show a mechanism by which the phenomena transfers in order to say that it transfers. You can't just say, oh, it's like an analogy or a metaphor. You know, I didn't get my mom's consciousness and I didn't get my dad's consciousness and I didn't get a blending of those conscious, but I got material from my parents that resulted in a brain that produces consciousness. Now you're closer to accurate. If you think that your model is more accurate than that, you have a ton of work to do to demonstrate it, because I just popped that off at the top of my head without doing any fucking research. And I guarantee you, if we shopped around descriptions of consciousness to actual experts, I would bet a substantial amount of money that mine is orders of magnitude closer to an accurate model than yours is, and you've written a book.
Well, this is the reason why I called. I was hoping it wasn't going to be you, because I know how hard you are on us callers, and I was hoping to be a difference. But
See,
yeah,
no, that's the problem. That's the problem, Tracy. That's the problem. People who are doing real science, people who are really genuinely exploring these questions, they want to get grilled by the most thorough people. They don't want to I was hoping it wouldn't be you. Okay, then you were hoping for some weak sauce. You were hoping for not being challenged because you know you're not equipped to fight that challenge. You know you're not equipped to defend your position. And so you want to softball it. Well, go find another show. I hear there's one called The Atheist Experience that frequently has people on that you could probably school.
Wait, hold on. I am, but I just didn't want it. I just didn't want that hard punch right now. I wanted to go
then you should have called
a little soft, and I want to eventually get to you, not get you right now.
I'm not the end boss.
Excuse me?
No. Well, Matt says that he's not the end boss, but I mean,
he's
honestly,
if
you're no, okay, fine. He's your nemesis. But I mean, if your idea can't survive, Matt, then what's the point in going through other people? Like to get, I mean, it just kind of feels like you want to desensitize yourself to being wrong. And then you get to Matt and it's like you're already desensitized to being told that you're wrong and nothing will harm you. And you'll just still keep believing in the same bullshit consciousness that you think exists. Because I mean, I agree with Matt on everything he said about your consciousness idea.
Well, I don't plan on stopping here. And I did call you. I did call this line for this critique. I was just hoping it wasn't going to be so hard. If in case you disagreed with me and you guys
then you have exactly the wrong mindset for this. Because one of the things about facing the most thorough, and by the way, mine isn't even that thorough. You called a non-expert and got pretty much a straightforward, simple dismissal. If you were really doing research and you really cared about the truth, instead of going from one weak response to another weak response to another weak response, you would want to go straight to the toughest response, because it's like saying, hey, what do I need to do to make this believable? What do I need to do to show that I have a good idea? Why would you want to have it challenged 35 fucking times before you get to the real issue instead of getting it challenged once at the real issue. That's lazy. That is time wasting. I don't have fucking time or patience to sit around and spin my wheels over and over with bad idea after bad idea of stuff I don't understand, going through softball challenges. You need to go right to the fucking horse's mouth. You need to sit down with neuroscientists, and actually you would be wasting their time. So I'm glad you're wasting my time instead of people who are doing real science. But if you were really doing science, you would not be bothered at all by the fact that you received a stern challenge to what is absolutely ridiculous. And especially when you say, I believe it, but I don't have any way of demonstrating it, then you don't have any business talking about it.
Well, only because my belief in consciousness is something immaterial. So I compare it to dark
matter. You didn't hear a fucking thing I said. It's like you didn't hear a fucking thing. It's like you didn't hear a fucking thing I said. It's like you didn't hear a fucking thing I said, Tracy.
No, I did. I'm trying to adjust. If you let me finish, I did. I believe.
No, I'm not going to let you finish. I have zero interest in ever letting you finish when you don't fucking listen when I fucking explain it to you, and then you get everything wrong. You know all about the hard problem of consciousness. Well, you're wanting to do this. You're wanting to do that. You have no fucking clue what you're talking about, and you're done wasting my time. Goodbye, Tracy.
Ouch.
Yeah.
I've never heard somebody say ouch to being hung up on.
I'm sure others have. I just hang up a little quicker and they don't get it out. The thing is, you can't go to no, my view of consciousness is immaterial. Hey, my view of consciousness is that it is nonsense, that it is a label that we put on a byproduct of brains or an actual product of brains, but it is not material. It's an abstract concept. It is the label we put on brain function. If you think consciousness is more than that, why? Well, I don't have a reason. Then what? When people call in to say that they believe something without a reason, or that they cannot demonstrate it, or they can't give any evidence or whatever else, I know that they're just engaged in bong-ripped theology and bong-ripped science. Wouldn't it be cool if, like, we all shared a consciousness and that was the universe trying to know itself? Well, I would think that, maybe consciousness is what precedes all of us, and consciousness created us. And I can find this in a number of different religions. For example, if you go to the Bible in Jeremiah, it says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And that was God describing the consciousness. Well, congratulations. You've now stacked up a whole bunch of bullshit and supported it with other bullshit. But you haven't done a thing to demonstrate a model of consciousness. And you don't even know enough about it to know the difference between the hard problem of consciousness and what is it. Anyway, we have super chats, and I'm going to get them queued up because it's going to be fun. We're doing all the super chats over $5 a day, as opposed to that can't be right. I saw 35 pages. Okay. I was like, man, you guys dug it. And now I only see like 10. We're going to be done pretty quick. All right. Oh, you want to start reading them, John, and then I'll go second?
Yeah, sure. $5 from Fiona the Fox, who says, Matt, I love what you do, and one of the best trans allies I've seen. Thank you.
You're welcome, but you should go talk to more trans people, because there's quite a few that would say that I'm transphobic, who've cut me off for being transphobic, and it's just wild. But I appreciate the fact that you feel I'm doing okay, and I will continue to try and do better. Greg Markowski. Hey, buddy. I think I need a fix of Andrew Seidel. Me too. But as you can imagine, Andrew is insanely busy. Thanks for the show. Thanks for the contribution, Greg. I greatly appreciate it. One of the things, well, Arden, do we have him on the schedule yet?
Seidel? Is that how you're...
Do we have Andrew on the schedule at all?
No, not currently.
Okay.
I can send him a text though. I know he's very, very busy he's not had a lot of time lately.
He's crazy busy. I will send him a message to see if he thinks he's going to get time to maybe discuss some of what's going on, especially as we've seen like a little hint of light, but we got a lot more to do.
5 from Duty and Courage, who says, I too am endlessly disappointed with Texas.
Yeah. There's a reason why we are considering leaving. Actually, there's probably 75 reasons why we're considering leaving. $10 in alleged money from our 51st state. Sorry, I shouldn't be that insulting, even when I'm trying to be funny. I wish you were our president there. Valdrianth TTRPG. I remember my first confession in 2nd grade. I wasn't sin confessing. I was interrogating the priest about how the Garden of Eden and dinosaurs worked. I was going to be a problem for my faith early. I was not like that. And I don't know that I ever ran across anybody who was, but I keep hearing from them.
Yeah, questions are very toxic to religious belief, it seems.
I remember, even as I got to be an adult, when I had problems or questions, they were more in a deeper philosophical sense, like about the existence of God, about the foundations of morality, stuff like that. Everything about every bit of the magic stuff in the Bible. I didn't quite go the Thomas Jefferson route of, excising them, but it was all, and I don't know who did this. I don't know if it was a pastor or parent or what. It was all in those are things we cannot know and cannot understand now. And it's one of the reasons why we need to make sure that we are doing what God wants us to do, so that our treasures in heaven will also include the answers to the questions and a better understanding of what happened and why throughout history. And so as long as there's a magic man who can do anything, then that was one of the goals to get to heaven. Tell me, what was the Garden of Eden like? Show it to me. What actually happened there? How did this happen? How did this make sense? What was the talking snake? Because it doesn't say the talking snake was Satan or the devil or Beelzebub or anything like that. It just says the serpent. And it specifically says the serpent was craftier than the other creatures, suggesting that it wasn't a Satan. And so apologists later come in and they're like, oh yes, that's the devil, or the devil possessed him, or, it had to be something like that because it's evil. And so even if it was a regular snake, then it was evil that took over the snake and cursed it. And yet that doesn't make sense because the serpent told the truth that you're not going to die when you eat that fruit. And God didn't curse the devil and let the snake go on about his business. God cursed the snake. How could the snake have possibly? I have a couple hundred snakes. I don't see any inkling in there that any of them could resist a devil if it came to possess them. And if a devil possessed one of my snakes, why would I take it out on the snake? I will curse you and all of your descendants to go forth on your belly, and you will be an enmity to the woman, and blah, 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 blah. It is bizarre. And yet when I was a kid, those were the stories that were, that's not about salvation. We don't know the specifics of that. All we know is that God is good, the devil is evil, and the devil is doing everything he can to deceive you, to lead you away from God. And that includes filling your mind with doubts. Those doubts are there to make you waver from the path. Those doubts are there to distract you from the work you have to be done. You're only here for 70 if you are fortunate. And in that time, I better stop because it's getting gross. I'm starting to feel like I'm going to need to take a shower from this sermon. But yeah, I didn't push back. I would ask questions, and then whatever answer they gave me, I would take it and go off and think about it. And if it made sense in some way, I would just accept it if I could find a way to make it make sense. And if it didn't make sense, it fell into the bucket of God can explain that to me when I get to heaven. I don't think a lot of people get kind of the literalist, fundamentalist indoctrination that takes place, but that's it.
Uh, 10 from Jiska87, who says, in Trump's defense, he doesn't lie all the time. He did say that smart people don't like him. So yeah, hashtag Guy Fieri is mostly unique. Hashtag love you soon. Hashtag Zerbion sucks. Fucking
Nice.
Guy Fieri.
Although there's a few places in Austin that made his diners, drive-ins, and dives that are outstanding. Y'all get down here at some point. Not only do I recommend that everybody go see Esther's Follies as one of the best things to watch in Austin, but you can walk 2 doors down to Casino El Camino and have one of the best burgers in town, for sure.
Nice.
$10 from At the Atheist Mechanic. I know I brought it up before, but the joke that the story of Jesus was just a teenage pregnancy being covered up still amuses me. I know it has holes in the logic, but it's all a silly idea. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about that story or the sorts of stories that Valderanth was talking about. It's bizarre. And I think, you know how when you talk about the resurrection and they're like, hey, women weren't trusted, and why would they include the testimony of a woman, which would be mocked? Therefore, by including the testimony of one of the least trusted members of society, that actually means the story is more likely true, because if they were going to make up a witness, they would have made up one of the apostles. They would have made up, a Roman centurion. They would have made up anybody who would have been credible, but instead they went with someone who isn't credible, and that makes the story more believable. And I'm like, do you not just see what you just did? Well, it makes sense that the butler did it. Okay. Why would they pick a terrible witness like that? Maybe so they could make the added argument that, look, if I was making this up, I would have come up with a better alibi. Literally, how many fucking crime stories are sitting there where the guilty person's like, I don't have a better alibi. I'm sorry. I have no way to demonstrate it. If I was, you have to believe me, if I was lying, I would have come up with a better alibi. And if I'd planned this out in advance, I would have come up with something so that it looked closer to perfect instead of this hot mess that seems to point at me, but I didn't do it. Of course, that's what they're going to do. That's just what the butler would say.
Is this my turn? I think it is.
Yeah.
All right. 10 from Kia Star 67, who says, please keep teaching and showing folks how important truth is. Thanks. Go Blue Wave.
Yeah. I want to start calling them left waves, and I want them to actually be more left than blue, but I get the distinction.
Yeah, same here.
$10 from Sapphic Hazard. Yesterday was the best day in a long time. America got bottom surgery, got rid of the Dick Cheney, and his top seems to be doing well too.
I like that. Got bottom surgery, got rid of Dick Cheney.
Yeah, there was a meme I saw yesterday that was like, this is the type of day America needed. Dick Cheney dies in the morning and Mamdani becomes the mayor of New York in the evening. It's a good day. I don't think it's a good day necessarily when anybody dies. I don't mourn Dick Cheney. I got nothing nice to say at all. My condolences to his family and the people that loved him, but in my view, he's a war criminal.
$50 from Systemic Error, who says, my mother relied on the programs under threat right now. She had "I cannot afford to live" scribbled down at her desk. My memory of performing CPR on her last week will fuel my activism for decades to come. I am a grieving son. I am in the fight. Wow, that's difficult right there. I'm so sorry about that.
Wow. Yeah, I'm actually stunned. I'm so sorry that happened. And yeah, it's the reason we have to keep fighting. How bizarre.
It
That in the
really
wealthiest
baffles.
country in the world, people can't afford to live.
Yeah. And it really baffles me when you've got conservatives out there that seriously can't, like, I get, step into somebody else's shoes. Like, it has to be directly affecting them in order for them to care about the health and well-being of another person. And it just, that baffles me because, growing up, I always cared about other people's well-being. Like, I had a deep care for it. And, I grew up around conservatives. So it really is baffling to me.
I care more about other people's well-being now than I did when I was a Christian or when I was growing up. And part of it was because there was, within the particular denomination that I was involved with, there was a sense of fatalism. All your leaders are God appointed. All your governments are God appointed. Nothing happens that isn't part of God's plan. Yes, you still have free will, but that is part of God's plan. And what you do with it is part of God's plan. And yes, I know from a philosophical standpoint, that does not make sense. That there can't be a God that created everything, could have created things differently, and chose to create this particular world knowing everything that would happen. And you also have free will. I get that now. I didn't get it when I was 10. Sorry. But it was very much, I can't do anything for those people. We can donate to charity. That's a good thing. God will take care of them. When they die, they're better off. They've gone on to heaven. And if they haven't gone off to heaven, that's our fault for not doing what we needed to do to make sure that the Holy Spirit reached them. There was immense pressure. And I never sat around going, I've heard from atheists who were like, I was a Christian, and then I realized that some of my friends were going to hell, and none of that made sense to me, and it was so traumatizing that I just couldn't believe it anymore. And for me, it was when I learned that my friends are going to hell, it was, well, we need to make sure that they have the opportunity to find Jesus so they don't have to go to hell. And if they don't, then they at least have that choice, and God allowed them that choice. It was very much my mom thinks homeless people are just lazy. Doesn't consider difficult situations, doesn't consider generational problems, doesn't consider mental health issues, doesn't consider they're just lazy. And they're abusing the system. And the same thing is true in a number of other different categories about how we're supposed to care about people. This world is like dirty rags. You shouldn't be seeking wealth in this world. Give it away. You should be surviving and doing what you need to do to share the gospel. That's the way I was raised. And so I didn't ever sit there going, oh no, my friends are going to hell, let me cry about it, because crying don't fix shit. You got to do something. And so that's where I was. And when you see a situation like this, where people only seem to recognize a problem once it becomes acutely, tightly tied to them, they don't care about gay rights until they get a daughter, a cousin, a son, somebody who's queer. It has to impact them. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she of the Jewish space laser fame, who I find myself agreeing with repeatedly in the last month or so, only started giving a shit about this Epstein stuff once she heard from women who were talking about being victims. I guarantee you Marjorie Taylor Greene has some story like that, or somebody in her life with a story like that, and that connected enough for her to give a fuck. Similarly, when she found out that, like, I just got the news, I got an email just the other day. My monthly insurance premium, this is only for me, and I pay this out of pocket with money that comes from the super chat. So Cough it up, motherfuckers. I'm kidding. But I just got to notice that it's going to go from about 1,090 to almost 1,600 next year. It's going up by 38%. Is how much my monthly cost for health insurance is going to be. I don't want to end up writing, I cannot afford to live on my arm. I don't want to end up canceling my insurance because it costs more to try to stay alive than it does to, I don't know, struggle through. Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't give a shit until she found out her kids' insurance premiums were going to go up. And now all of a sudden, she's on the right side or closer to the right side of this stuff. Yeah, John's right. It is shocking how many people don't understand. How many people don't understand consent? Who don't understand rape culture? Who don't understand systemic racism? Who don't care about consent until they get a daughter? Why does something have to happen to you for you to care enough to begin to understand it in order to help others? The moment I realized that, I was already out of Christianity. I was already out and recognizing that I have an obligation as a member of society to use whatever I have, whether it's privilege in some category, whether it's finances, whether it's the ability to speak or convey information, whatever it is, I have a fucking duty to do that, to try to make the world better. And I'm probably going to fail over and over again. And I'm probably not going to get the help I need a good chunk of the time. But I also have a duty to not give up. I don't know what other people need to learn those lessons, but I wish not you, the people watching, I mean, you guys are involved. I wish they'd hurry up because it's really wearing the rest of us out to be the only ones that seem to give a fuck. To have people call in and not know how anything works, who don't know anything about the government, who are buying into whatever lies. Yes, as a friend of mine or an acquaintance of mine pointed out, these people are victims of one of the grandest misinformation propaganda machines of all time. And I get that anybody can be duped. But if you've been duped and you've been called out, and this has been going on for years and years and years, you are now without excuse. You either don't give a fuck enough to correct the information, or you do, but you don't know what to do. In which case, the next thing you got to do is figure out how to find someone who will help you, teach you what to think, not what the final conclusion is, but how to go about challenging the positions and how to figure out what's good information. Something we've discussed on here, I don't know, a dozen times in the last couple of years. This is $10 from Kia Star 67 for systemic error and what they just went through with their mother. My condolences, hang in there. Yeah. I don't know. I get overwhelmed so much more easily. When I had the heart surgery, they told me, John, and I just kind of shrugged it off. They were like, you're probably going to find that you cry more now. And I don't know if that's a real thing or if it's like a psychological experiment of, hey, we don't think men cry enough. So now that you've had heart surgery, we're going to give you a psychological stimulus to make you think it's okay to cry. But you can ask Arden. I'm absolutely more prone to crying, and not like all the time, because I used to never cry, but I get weepy and overwhelmed, but in a joyous sense, almost as much as in a sad sense, probably more. I probably get overwhelmed more by joy than I do from sadness.
That's true. We have to keep a mop around the house because he's just crying so much. The floor is like wet and slippery. It's ridiculous. I'm like, oh my God, dude, calm down.
Take a bucket and a mop for that wet ass tear ducts.
It's all right. If you just call me a pussy, then you're back to wet ass pussy, and it's just me that's the wet
one. 10 from the atheist mechanic who says, I've always kind of been baffled by the free will argument. What's the point of it if we get punished for using it? Makes no sense.
Yeah, you basically have a gun to your head under some of the models. You know, it's why I came up with the Gods of Mafia Boss example 20 years ago, which is, hey, that's a nice soul you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. I'm going to let you decide what to do with it. But if you don't decide right, I can't be held responsible for what I do to you after that.
Yeah, and I get that pushback whenever we're talking about morality and stuff. It's like, well, God gave us free will, and so we can freely choose to disobey Him. It's like, I can understand that from one perspective, but that one perspective is very narrow when you consider like the theology of the Bible in general. Because, like, sure, God gives you free will or whatnot, but He also expects you to adhere to His will. So I mean, like, I don't know, it kind of creates this weird thing, and as well as like the Christian add-on to the Older Testament theology of his omniscience, because like he wasn't omniscient in the Old Testament, but New Testament he's all of a sudden omniscient, and so that kind of presents a problem for free will. So I don't know, there's a lot of different avenues that it just ends up convoluting the entire theology, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's for most models of, for example, the Abrahamic God, where that God created the universe, could have created a different universe, and knew the outcomes of all of them. Those three scenarios, any God that fits those three renders free will null and void. Because if you know the outcome and you picked the outcome, that means that any free will in there is just an illusion. I had Arden bring the. Oh,
did he just bite you?
He did. He did.
I thought he felt tense.
He's freaking out a little from stress. So yeah, I got tagged. This is the new snake who traveled, and so I probably should have left him alone for a day. But because Atheist Mechanic sent a couple of super chats, I figured I'd show it off for the people who might be interested.
Like, I'm so sick of your bullshit.
If you know, like, I put my finger right up against his nose earlier, and he didn't do anything at all. But he's definitely a little happy. Now, I will tell you, he's 100% het pied and possibly het clown. But for the visible genes that are named in there, this is fire, pastel, stranger, and then either specter or yellow belly. You can't tell them apart at the moment right now.
Pointy end away.
I think it's the light. I think you brought him in and he got the light in his eye right there.
Oh, he just struck again.
Did he?
Yeah, he
Sweet.
didn't hit me, but he tried.
So just so you guys can see how bad it is to get bit by a snake, let me, right there at my wrist, you can almost see two little dots right there. Those aren't fangs. Those just happen to be the only two teeth that even kind of partially broke the skin. I almost never get bit. And that was just a basically leave me the fuck alone thing. And he just flew across country yesterday. So probably best that I leave him alone. Anyway.
Yeah, on a plane. He flew on a plane. So there were snakes on a plane?
There were. There are snakes on a plane most weeks midweek. But yeah. For those who are curious, no, it didn't hurt. It's more like if somebody poked you unexpectedly, it's like that. Anyway, I got bit. It's like the second time in the last 5 months or so that I got bit. So hooray. Now Arden can point and laugh because she feeds the babies more than I do. And the babies are always hungry and they will try to go at the rodent and occasionally miss, or sometimes they anticipate the rodent. And so you could be moving it forward even on tongs and you'll get tagged on the little finger or something. Doesn't hurt. No big deal. Anyway, $10 from @RaiseAVillage. Thought this would amuse you. I've recently gone back to watching New Age woo videos. Oh my. But now I laugh my ass off at the bozo junk I used to believe. Also happy about the blue wave. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to find some good woo videos to like do for my channel because I'm going to try to get back into doing reaction content. So
Old school spirit science. When I was a teenager, I used to watch that shit. There is I don't know if they're still up, but he used to have a bajillion videos on like just every woo thing you can imagine.
10 from Systemic Error. Thank you, everyone. We carry on for the living. When we fight, we win. This is everyone's fight in solidarity, my friends. We persist. Yeah, and I have to say, like, one of the things that really got me, that not that it got me into like being more activisty or whatnot, but really kind of got me like emotionally, was I remember hearing about a person that I believe they were in Texas, and they didn't have enough money to get like insulin, and they ended up dying from I think probably diabetic ketoacidosis. And I mean, I know what it's like to go through that. When I don't know, Matt, if you remember when that very last reason rally was. It was like in 2015 2016 timeframe.
Yeah.
In DC. Yeah, I was at it. I was actually helping run some of the social media there, but I ended up, before leaving out, I went into diabetic ketoacidosis, and I had to stay like an extra 3 or 4 days. And it was really scary. Like, and I hate that. And I hate that somebody had to, like, it seems like for something that should be readily accessible to everybody, a life, necessary to live for a lot of people, something that you just can't, somebody just can't afford to have insulin like that. That really got me. That really affected me. I don't know. That just came to mind reading Systemic Errors thing here.
Yep. I got a little lucky, and I think there might have been an error in my last set of prescriptions, but because everybody and their brother is on the semaglutide stuff, for a while it was making it difficult for diabetics to even get it. And for like type 2s like myself, that drug is as close to a miracle as anything. And I watched a video on the Sci Channel today with Hank Green, I think, talking about how powerful it is and how there are some side effects that people aren't talking about. And some of them are positive, but some of them are also negative. But overall, like, this is a drug that could nearly eliminate obesity and diabetes, or at least type 2 diabetes. And I don't pay much for it at all. However, and see, here's the thing. If my insurance premium goes up to $1,500 a month, the dosage of Mounjaro that I'm on right now, the insurance, it's a scam. The drug company says it costs $1,500 for this set of injections, and your insurance covers $1,475 of it, and then you pay $25 because we have a law that they put a limit on how much you can charge for insulin and stuff at $25. If those laws change, I'm not going to be able to afford my medicine. And if the insurance premiums keep going up, I won't be able to afford the insurance premiums that lower the price of my medicine. So if I just stop paying for insurance, I would be paying all of that again just for that one medication, let alone the rest of them. So until it gets up there, it is saving me some money, even though it's costing other people more. That sounds a little bit like socialism. So why don't we just provide health care and recognize that this is functionally a part of who we are and what we need to spend our money on, so that John doesn't have to waste money staying extra days at a Reason rally or after the Reason rally's over. And, I don't have to worry about, am I going to have to scribble something on my arm? Am I going to have to make a choice between, I don't eat much anymore. So I can easily make a choice between eating and getting my medication. I'll take my medication, and then I can hit up garbage bins for leftovers at the grocery store or something. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I actually can't get those, the Mounjaro. I've got a prescription for it, but insurance won't cover it for me in Alabama.
And if I go off of my insurance, like right now, I need to look into the VA health benefits that I may, in fact, be eligible for. But if the VA health benefits don't include access to the medication I'm on, then I have to redo everything. We're going to have to change every bit of medication I'm on. And who knows if I'll be getting anywhere near as good a care. The reason we're the United States is so that if you have rights in one state, you should have them in all of the states. Basic rights. If you're married in one state, it needs to be recognized in another state. You shouldn't, if you pack up and move from one state to another, you shouldn't have to completely change everything about your life other than what's the point in being United States? We could be the 50 divided states with open borders. Okay. That's the only part about, people are like, oh, you don't believe in states' rights. No, I really don't. Not on anything important. I believe that local communities can decide, you know what? We'd rather not have this here, except that what is this? What is it okay for one area to change their rules about? Speed limit, minimum speed limit, maximum speed limit. But for things that involve people's freedoms, whether you're talking about we're not going to allow alcohol or porn here, well, congratulations, that's never going to fucking work. And also, you're just violating liberties that people should have. So what rights are left for the states to run? How they run their elections? Well, now that's led us to Prop 50 in California to try to counter what Texas is doing, because the states run their own elections. And that just makes everything rife for abuse and manipulation like this. I don't give a fuck about states' rights. If there's a really important states' right, somebody needs to let me know what it is. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if we're going to have rights and freedoms and we're going to be united, then we need to stay united. And if we're not, we need to stop fucking pretending. $5 from Sapphic Hazard. Now y'all are making me defend Fieri. It said Fieri. And he put his own money up to pay his staff to stay home early in COVID. Nice guy. I heard some terrible things about him once upon a time, and yet when I went and looked up the details about him, I think it was a smear campaign, and I don't think it was true.
Okay, look, I've got beef with Guy Fieri, but it's not a serious beef. It was a beef that was concocted while I was a pint and a half in. A pitcher in, and it was just because I was sitting there and I was watching one of his shows, and I was like, I could fucking do that. And that's it's just a running joke at this point. Like, I'm sure he's a fine guy, I'm sure he's great, and everything.
Were you talking about what a difficult job it is to go in and eat somebody's food and go, oh, that's amazing,
make me to Flavor Town? Yeah, exactly. Like, I could fucking do that. I could drive around in a convertible and eat fucking food.
Fair. I pronounce your criticism of Guy Fieri fair.
10 from the Fuzzy Logic says, who says, so the host of End Boss isn't actually the End Boss, you say? Is that like how DJT played the successful businessman character on The Apprentice and then Gullible Theist believed it?
Yeah, I don't want to. The whole joke behind the End Boss is that I wasn't the End Boss. You didn't, when you signed up for the End Boss, you weren't necessarily getting me. You got to pick who you wanted as the End Boss. You could have said, hey, I want to do End Boss, but I want to go up against Promise. I don't like your chances, but we would have at least presented it to Promise to see, Yeah, it came as a joke because there were too many theist apologists that were treating me like I was the End Boss, and I'm like, okay, let's roll with it. I'm not even the End Boss of what happens in my own house. We're properly cooperative, and that's why we still have a cat. Okay. She might not be paying that much attention. All right.
Oh, I'm
$10
paying
from
attention. I'm keeping track. I'm keeping score. You just wait.
Okay. $10 from Echon or Econ. I don't know which one. Matt, I'd like I'd like to thank you. I was raised in a staunchly conservative Christian home. Over the years, your work helped tear away that veil for me. Boy, do I owe you much love and stay well. Thank you. Keep me in healthcare and we'll call it even. I mean, you don't have to do it entirely yourself. You can work with all the rest of the people. But I like the fact that I've had a triple bypass. My diabetes is finally under control. I need to get my A1C down just a little bit more. Apart from being older and weaker, I'm generally in the best shape I've been in like 30 years, which is sad that it took this long to get into better shape, to where better shape is still ultimately weaker and slower than it was 30 years ago. But general health, I'm okay. And I think one of the things that did it was right after I had triple bypass, there was some complete jackass. I don't know if the video is still up there. I never met him, never heard him, but I have some haters. And somebody put up a video mocking and laughing about the fact that I had triple bypass, and they said I'd be dead in 6 years. So the only goal is to make it 7, just to show that fucker up.
666 from just 4? Nice.
Yeah, 4 years.
That's good. I know you can do it, Matt. 666 from Jesse Chappelle 89, who just sends a heart.
That's awesome. Not a heart. That's lips kissing. They're kissing that quote mark there. That's what it is right there. She's in love with these quotes. Thanks, Jesse. $10 from Adlube786. Richard Feynman said, I'd rather have questions that can't be answered than answers that can't be questioned.
10 from the Fuzzy Logic, who says, speaking of health insurance premiums, one of the many impacts of losing the ACA will be to push desperate Christians into unregulated Christian health sharing ministries. Google it. It's bad. Yeah, I believe John Oliver did like a special on that. I think he set one up. I don't know if it's like still active, but I know for the purposes of the show, he set up like a health sharing ministry thing.
Yep. Also, I'm only going to call it Obamacare from now on. Although I probably should stop, because they're like, we didn't want to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. We want to get rid of Obamacare. Oh, okay. Because you're too stupid to get health care.
Yeah.
$5 from the Atheist Mechanic. Speaking of snakes, I finally have my VPI baby eating on her own. She's going into shed. She's only 50 grams currently. Wow, that's small. The smallest snake we ever hatched out was 27 grams. And it was one of 2 twins. It was the only twin that survived to hatch out. And it was, I think it was super leopard, but we never verified that. But it was definitely leopard. It was really cool looking, and it was so teeny tiny. And we were like, oh, this isn't going to make it. And it started eating. Ultimately, it did not make it, but it ate better than some of the other ones did for a little bit of time. It's just a 27 gram ball python, when at birth they should be, well, if yours is only 50, that's definitely underweight. I think if I went downstairs and weighed the ones that just hatched out, they'd be closer to 70 grams. But it's been a while. I'd have to double check. But I'm glad that it's eating. All right. And for all the people who don't care about snakes.
20 from Rob Lifton, who says, did Andrew Cuomo do a "you won't have Andrew Cuomo to kick around anymore" speech last night? I didn't listen to his concession speech.
I only saw that he jumped into his OJ Bronco and left town. And nobody chased him. Na 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 na. $5 from the Fuzzy Logic. UK here. I'm on Manjaro for weight loss. I pay the full non-NHS price, 280 pounds a month. So that's still, though. Wait, 280 pounds. Is that like it's like $180, $190? Or am I going the wrong way? In any case, it ain't $1,500 a month. If I were diabetic or even pre-diabetic, it would be free. See? Imagine that.
USA is like, fuck diabetics.
And you no longer have a Prince Andrew, although I saw that the house that he had to give up was very nice. And then I saw a picture of the house he's essentially moved into, and I'm like, really? Yes, you can take away my titles in my first castle and let me stay in my second castle. Until you cut him off the family tit, you haven't done a fucking thing, Your Majesty. Yeah, I love the fact that there was a great meme where it said he paid a ton of his mom's money to someone he claimed he'd never met for something he claims he never did, just to be polite. You're so fucking full of it.
Is this my turn?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. 5 from the Atheist Mechanic, who says, I don't know, John. Some of the food Andrew Zimmerman on that show Bizarre Foods ate was pretty gross.
Yeah, but Guy didn't do that. Guy just ran around eating good food.
Yeah. Actually, interesting story. I was in Hawaii and we stopped at a random like shrimp food truck kind of thing. And wouldn't you fucking know it, Guy Fieri ate at that same place, and they had like a picture up on the side of it and everything like that. And I was like, how in the fuck do I find him out in buttfuck nowhere, Hawaii? I find the one place that Guy Fieri seems to have come to.
He's been everywhere, man, just like Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
$5 from Slug Racer. Thanks for all you do. Butterfly looks like a Kirby and hearts. So butterflies, Kirby, love. It's probably not Kirby. It's probably just maybe it's like arms out and a hug emoji. I don't know.
I can only see Kirby now. That's what that is.
But it's
now.
sweet,
It's
and I'm
Kirby.
grateful. So thank you. But I'm not going to cry.
20 from Oliver the Emoji 5424. Hey Matt, I am a Christian familiar with your show The Atheist Experience, and I would like to hear your opinion on Ecclesiastes without dogma, e.g. a secular Bible study, since dogma is all over the place in the Bible. Thanks. This is a weird comment.
Okay. I'll tell you what I'll do, because we're almost done with the show. Just for the fact that you donated $20 and said you wanted to see this, I will add it to the list of topics to cover. I'm adding it right now. There you go. Ecclesiastes Thoughts, Secular Bible Study. I will go back and I will go through Ecclesiastes, and I will put together as one of my videos on YouTube. It'll go out as part of the Patreon project. And I'm going to shoot for next month. Don't hold me to it, because November and December are busy stuff. But I will do a secular Bible study on Ecclesiastes and get it out for you, just for being interested and donating and contributing. But I'm definitely not going to do it 1 minute before the show's over tonight. So I'll thank you for the support. And there, I've enticed you to come back, or maybe even go and subscribe to my Patreon project. Patreon.com. Shit. I don't even know mine. I just know patreon.com/call the line. But patreon.com/Matt Dillahunty, I think, is where you'll find me. And the final super chat for today, I'll do it. $5 from Dante Verona. Why are you opposed to the Affordable Care Act, or as you call it, Obamacare? Trump supporter. I don't know. I mean, he named it after himself. Oh, yes. Yes. The only thing that Trump's renamed that he hasn't renamed after himself is the Gulf of America, but he probably thinks he is America, so it's wild.
Yeah, doesn't he want to like rename the Kennedy Center like after himself, or maybe after Melania?
He suggested it. You know, the East Wing has been taken down. Now there's going to be a ballroom up there, and it's going to be the Trump ballroom until we tear it down. or replace it with the new White House clinic or soup kitchen. Anyway, thanks, John, for joining me today. Thanks to Dragon for doing our call screening, to all of our moderators, to Arden for putting this together. There's a bunch of other shows here on the Line Network, so you need to click like and subscribe, even if you despise me, because coming up tomorrow is an episode of the Transatlantic Call-In Show starting at 2 p.m. Central with Arden and Mama Meth. Is that right?
Yeah, Mama Meffy.
Cool. I knew I was missing like a letter or a part of that thing for the name. So I just saw a super chat pop up on my thing, and I had to double check to make sure that it wasn't a new one there. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Look, good stuff happened yesterday. Good stuff for the world, even if you don't completely agree with it. But we're a long way from having anything fixed. Not even people haven't even taken office yet. We're trying to be positive, optimistic. Use it as a motivator that you might be moving things in the right direction. Patreon.com/calltheline. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.